One Piece. The worst pirates in history, starting from Rock's Pirates. Chapter 1. 42 years before Luffy set sail. Year 1478 of the sea calendar. Hashinosu Island, the pier south of the town. Sails filled the area, and numerous pirate crews, drawn by Rox's name, docked here. A small three-masted schooner squeezed through the gaps between countless large ships and also docked here. Then, a handsome young man with a sunny disposition, flowing black hair, and a dashing look stepped off the ship. Is this Hashinosu Island? It's quite lively. The pirate in charge of managing the pier immediately walked over. Hey, kid. Are you here alone? Yes. What a reckless fellow. What's your name? Adolf D. York. Never heard of it. I'm here to join the Rock's Pirates. Wahahaha. Daydreaming is truly a characteristic of kids. The pirate, who looked like a mole, pointed his thumb towards the island's interior. See that rock mountain that looks like a fish? The Rock's Pirates are there. If you want to find them, go ahead and try. But I don't think you'll ever see them. After all, you're just a kid. Wahahahaha. York looked in the direction the mole-like pirate was pointing. A large mountain stood tall in the distant center of the island. In his memory, it was a rock mountain shaped like a large skull, but it didn't yet have the two eyes it would later, and its overall shape was closer to a simple line drawing of a fish. He walked past the mole-like pirate and gently patted his arm. Thank you for telling me their location. I'll give you a good dream. The mole-like pirate, who had been laughing wildly, suddenly stopped. His short, stout body fell to the ground, and snores quickly began to sound. Immediately after, the expression on his face began to change, as if he were having a spring dream, revealing a lewd, foolish grin. The pirates on the town streets all burst into laughter at this sight. Knocked out by a kid, what a waste. Ha ha ha. You've got some skills, kid. Maybe you'll even get a chance to see that great one. Wahaha. York wasn't angry, he simply returned a smile. Thank you for your kind words. The next second, a soft white light suddenly emanated from him. All the pirates bathed in the light, regardless of gender, collectively shuddered, then bent at the waist and fell to the ground. The female pirates all blushed and were unable to stand. The male pirates, one by one, rolled on the ground, making strange, hee sounds. I'm giving you a happy time. York smiled as he added the latter half of the sentence, walking step by step through the fallen crowd, quickly heading towards the fish-shaped mountain in the center of the island. All the pirates he encountered along the way, anyone illuminated by the holy light, all fell under York's ability, with none able to withstand even a single move. Until at some point, the people in the center of the island seemed to finally notice something was amiss and sent someone to investigate. The newcomer was tall, nearly 7 meters in height, with thick, muscular limbs, a pair of large bullhorns on his head, and long, black hair cascading down his back. York took a glance and recognized him as Kaido in his young, teenage years. You did all this. Kaido's gaze swept around, looking at the many pirates rolling on the street, making various strange laughing sounds, and asked York, who had walked up to him. Besides you and me, is there a third person standing here? York smiled and asked back, while inwardly feeling a slight surprise. Under the holy light radiance mode of his devil fruit ability, only uninitiated individuals who had not yet tasted carnal desires were unaffected. He hadn't expected that Kaido, despite having joined the Rock's Pirates and met Charlotte Linlin, had not yet been eaten. What a perverse ability. Kaido snorted lightly. Although he hadn't tasted carnal desires, his experience was far from lacking. He could roughly guess what York's ability was by looking at the pirates rolling on the ground. Lowering the spiked club he had on his shoulder, letting it hit the ground and create a shallow pit, Kaido said in a deep voice. Though your ability is perverse, you've made it this far, so you have the qualifications, kid. State your name. Adolf D. York. York, huh? I'm Kaido. Remember. The name of the man who will kill you today. With a roar, Kaido lifted his spiked club and swung it powerfully at York. York calmly raised his left arm, dark aura coiling around it, and with a clang, directly blocked Kaido's downward swing of the spiked club. His entire body was unharmed, only the ground beneath his feet was slightly cracked. Are you not welcoming me? Or is this a test of my strength? It's a test. Kaido retracted his spiked club and replied, "If you can't even take one hit from me, no matter how strange your ability is, you don't have the qualifications to join the Rock's pirate crew." With that, Kaido looked at the pirates still rolling on the ground. "Your goal has been achieved, put away your ability. I can't retract it." York replied with a smile, "Actually, there's no need to. I haven't harmed them, I'm just giving them a harmless happy time. If you don't believe me, you can ask them afterward whether they would feel happy or pained if I were to retract my ability midway." Kaido frowned, said nothing more, and instead turned to lead York. Before long, the two arrived at the main hall inside the large mountain. The hall was vast, and there were many people. However, York was not interested in getting to know them one by one. After entering the hall, he immediately spoke, "Earlier, you tested my strength. Now, I also want to test your strength. The esteemed Rock's pirate crew shouldn't lack even this much courage, right?" Wahahaha. A boisterous laugh rang out from the main seat in the hall. A tall, burly man with wild, mixed black and white hair laughed and said, "Come on. Show me your strength." York maintained his smile, slowly bringing his hands together in front of him. Holy light fully bloomed from his body, like a solemn Buddha. HMMPH. A muffled grunt suddenly echoed in the hall. A man with light purple hair was the first to bend at the waist. Next was a man with a large chin and a cigar in his mouth. Then the man with sunglasses and a hat. The man resembling the eccentric monk Rouge. The large, catfish-like fishman. The short man in noble attire. The man with a triple chin and a forked tongue like a snake's. The blond man in a kimono with a pair of swords tucked into his sash. And, the 8.8-meter tall, exquisitely beautiful, alluring pink-haired woman. Under the holy light emitted by York, they all showed varying degrees of reaction. York completely ignored those who were affected, directly locking his gaze on the few targets completely unaffected by his ability. Rocks, Whitebeard, and also Stussy and Kaido, who had initially brought him in. "I didn't expect the Great Rock's pirate crew to have so many uninitiated individuals who haven't tasted carnal desires." York inwardly sighed. This truly was an era of great suppression. It desperately needed his devil fruit ability. To release the suppression for everyone. To bring happiness. Happy time. It begins on Hashinosu Island. Is that all you can do, kid? Rocks glanced at the people affected by York's ability, his eyes showing a look of scrutiny and assessment. "Of course not." York smiled in response, separating his clasped hands and extending one forward. Sacred white light coalesced in his palm, then several light-formed tentacles shot out, coiling towards Rocks, Whitebeard, Stussy, and Kaido. The first two showed no intention of dodging, while the latter hesitated for a moment and ultimately failed to evade. Rocks and Whitebeard even extended their hands, actively grabbing the tentacles York released. Stussy and Kaido couldn't do that, but they managed to only have one arm entangled by the white light tentacles. The next second, the four who had shown no reaction under the sacred light all changed expression simultaneously. Shy blushes appeared on their faces. Rocks and Whitebeard both roared, their armament hockey erupting, forcefully crushing the tentacles they held in their hands. However, even after pulverizing York's tentacles, they couldn't immediately calm their body's reactions. Both of them, red-faced, slightly hunched their backs. Stussy and Kaido couldn't do the same, they couldn't actively break free from the tentacles' entanglement. In the end, York had to retract the tentacles himself. Kaido, like others affected by York's ability, hunched his back with a red face and couldn't help but complain, "This ability is truly twisted." Stussy didn't scold York. Her beautiful face was flushed with a charming blush, her long, slender legs pressed together, and her sapphire-like beautiful eyes turned to look at Whitebeard with affectionate longing. Newgate. Whitebeard took a deep breath and slowly exhaled, calming the unusual stirrings in his body, but he gave Stussy no response. Seeing this, York's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise, then his gaze locked onto Stussy, his tongue slightly extended as he lightly licked his lips. Wahahaha. Your ability is truly excellent. In the main hall, Rocks, with his intermingled black and white hair, laughed boisterously. I agree. From today on, you are the second apprentice of my Rocks pirate crew. Just an apprentice. York turned his head to glance at Kaido, who was still hunched over. In a serious fight, Kaido couldn't even break free from the tentacles he released, let alone direct physical contact. After all, his Happy Devil Fruit ability was modeled after the Love Devil Fruit. It could not only cover a large area with sacred light, and precisely strike with sacred tentacles, but also be used in martial arts combat. Moreover, the effect of the ability when directly touching was at least 3 times stronger than that of the sacred tentacles. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm here to gain experience anyway. Several minutes later, those in the hall who were affected by the ability gradually recovered. Their gazes towards the new member, York, were not as pure as Rox's. Dread, bloodlust, curiosity, greed, malice. They didn't see York as a comrade at all. It was more like they had discovered their natural enemy, an amusing toy, and an unparalleled treasure. York noticed that among all the undisguised malicious gazes, the guy with the triple chin and a tongue like a snake's flicking was the most fervent and the one he found most disgusting. Hey, Kaido. Rox's voice interrupted York's observation of the others. Now you're a senior. Take the new guy to arrange his accommodation and tell him about the pirate crew's rules. Yes. The recovered Kaido agreed, then turned and led York out of the hall. Our pirate crew's rules are very simple. There's only one. Acknowledge yourself as a member of the Rock's pirate crew. There are no other restrictions. York nodded lightly, while in his mind, he recalled the guy with the triple chin again. York wasn't very familiar with that guy before he transmigrated, but after transmigrating, his name was widely known. Pirate King Wang Ji. In the original story, after the Rock's pirate crew disintegrated during the God Valley incident, he was the man who occupied Hashinosu Island for decades. York wasn't sure what role he played in the God Valley incident, but since he ended up occupying Hashinosu Island, it likely wasn't a glorious one. Of course, members of the Rock's pirate crew backstabbing each other was a characteristic of this pirate crew, and Wang Ji wasn't the only one to guard against. However, his priority for vigilance was temporarily raised to the highest by York. The night passed without incident. York, who had expected to be attacked in his sleep, was not attacked at all. The next day, another new member joined the Rock's pirate crew. His name was Kyo. He wore sunglasses with an X pattern on the lenses, and had a large Kyo tattoo on his left chest. His title was the Underworld Assassin, and he was rumored to be the current Golden Lion Shiki's archenemy. This new member's method of joining was similar to York's, except he forcibly fought his way down the mountain. Additionally, he had long been infamous, and was also older and more mature. Therefore, Rox directly gave him the position of a pirate crew executive. In the following days, York lived peacefully on the island, familiarizing himself with everything there, and no other new members joined. Until one day, Rox suddenly went crazy and summoned everyone, then with 2 loud bangs, he punched 2 large, eye-like holes in the fish-shaped mountain. Look. This view. This scenery. I told you we had to carve a hole. Don't you agree? York didn't know what Rox was up to, and quietly stood beside Kaido, waiting for what came next. Seeing that everyone was present and their attention was focused on him, Rox began his formal speech. In short, there are 2 devil fruits I want to obtain. One of them is probably in Elbaf. That one must be eaten by Herald to unleash its true power. Before he could finish, John, with light purple hair, suddenly interjected, also, you're looking for the Great Hammer Battle Group. I've heard legends about them. Charlotte Linlin. I've searched using my intelligence network, but I haven't seen any frozen giant army anywhere. Whitebeard. Even if there were, they'd be corpses by now, wouldn't they? Chong Mianbao. Indeed, they couldn't possibly be revived, could they? Shut up. I'm talking about my dream. Rox roared in anger, but the others completely ignored him. The only fishman member of the pirate crew, Babel, continued to interrupt Rox's speech. What's more, even if they did come back to life, they'd have no reason to obey your commands. Rox. That's why I need the power of Herald, the current king of Elbaf. Kaido then chimed in, can't we just overwhelm them with strength? If we beat that guy named Herald down, wouldn't he have to obey obediently? Don't you dare think like that again. You scoundrel. Rox, whose speech was constantly interrupted, kicked Kaido in the face, unleashing all his frustration on him. Stop it. Rox. Charlotte Linlin roared immediately. The kicked Kaido furiously rushed back, just about to make a move when he saw everyone draw their weapons, and even York released sacred tentacles from his palms. The atmosphere instantly became tense. The angry Kaido really wanted to curse. Why was it that everyone else could interrupt without consequence, but he got beaten for it? Seeing this, Charlotte Linlin sighed lightly and advised Kaido, Kaido, you too, stop it. Golden Lion Shiki directly warned everyone. It took a lot of effort to get this island. Do you want to turn it into ruins? Although this team will soon collapse, there's no need for this. Everyone heard this and slowly put away their weapons. John also took the opportunity to smooth things over. How about this, we wait until we've made a few more scores before we fight. New guy with the horns. Kaido was still somewhat resentful but dared not make any rash moves. Harold is my friend. If you dare to spout nonsense again, I'll wipe you out, Kaido. Rox warned him sternly and continued his speech. All of you listen carefully. Elbaf is a crucial key to overthrowing the Holy Land. If anyone doesn't believe me, get out right now. Whether or not you follow me on the day of destiny is up to you. But, if you've made up your mind, then let's cause some chaos together. I will surely show you the pinnacle of the world. After his impassioned speech, Rox finally felt satisfied. The others also seemed somewhat captivated by the grand vision Rox had painted. Watching everyone's seemingly indifferent but inwardly shaken expressions, Rox grew even more pleased. But just then, York, the taciturn newcomer who had joined not long ago, suddenly spoke up. If you were looking for a frozen giant army, I might know their approximate location. At these words, the collective gaze of the entire Rox pirate crew focused on York. A heads up. I'm only relaying hearsay, so I can't guarantee the accuracy of this information. Facing everyone's gazes, York immediately gave himself a disclaimer. Wahahaha. It doesn't matter even if it's hearsay. At most, we'll just make a wasted trip. Rox laughed heartily. But if it's true, then half of my goal will be achieved. With Rox's words, York no longer hesitated and blurted out all the information he knew. Starting from the island where Marine G5 branch is located, after the log pose is fully charged, on one of the islands it points to, someone saw a large group of frozen giants. I don't know if these giants are the Great Hammer Battle Group, but it's said they were all wearing prison uniforms, and their numbers were quite vast. Upon hearing this, Rox's eyes instantly lit up, and the other members also looked expectant. Wahahaha. Did you all hear that, mates? The Rox pirate crew. We set sail. In a flash, more than 10 days passed. Marine G5 branch. Loud alarms blared, and Marine soldiers responsible for patrol, reconnaissance, and lookout reported to the base's Vice Admiral with terrified expressions via Den Den Mushi. Vice Admiral. Emergency. Enemy attack. The Rox pirate crew is here. What did you say? Before the Marine G5 branch's Vice Admiral could even walk out of the base building, the base's perimeter wall was destroyed with a rumble. Rox charged through the breach first. Mates. First, grab all the valuable stuff in this base. Then, tear it down for me. A large group of pirates, each with different appearances but terrifying combat power, rushed into the base from behind Rox. York walked at the very back, and by the time he entered the base, countless Marines had already fallen. Yar yar, are you all so efficient? But if that's the case, wouldn't I seem slow and useless? York's eyes narrowed, and an invisible shockwave erupted from him. Crack, crack. The ground and walls cracked, and deep within the base, a large number of Marine soldiers, who were desperately trying to block the Rox pirate crew, collectively collapsed in an instant. The commanding vice admiral of the base, though his consciousness remained clear, found himself uncontrollably half-crouched on the ground, dripping with cold sweat. Haoshoku Haki. Such powerful Haoshoku Haki. Even I almost. The other members of the Rox pirate crew, who were in the midst of killing, collectively turned to look. This Haki. Is it Rox? No, not quite. Could it be that kid? What a joke. How is that possible? How could an underage kid possess such powerful Haki? It's almost comparable to Whitebeard and Golden Lion. Rox squinted at York, who stood beside him. I didn't expect you, kid, to also have this aptitude. When did you awaken it? From the moment I was born and gained consciousness. Wahahaha, a born Haoshoku user. You truly are a little monster. After a period of plunder, the Marine G5 branch's wealth was completely looted, and all Marines were killed, many of whom were even finished off by Rox himself. Our objective cannot be known by Marineford. One day later. The log pose's magnetic force was fully charged, and 3 log poses each pointed in a different direction. Left, middle, right. Rox directly chose the middle log pose, which was shaking most violently. Mates. Set sail. Let's find the Great Hammer Battle Group. Loaded with the wealth plundered from the Marine G5 branch, the pirate ship set sail once more. Another day passed, and the Rox pirate crew arrived at a heavily guarded island. As many as 5 marine warships patrolled the island's perimeter, while inside the island, there were towering and densely packed buildings completely different from a marine base. Punk Hazard. Rox, with just his eyesight, saw the name displayed on the wall surrounding the cluster of buildings. York's face showed a hint of surprise. He hadn't expected Rox to have such incredible luck. With just one choice, he had directly found Punk Hazard. Wahahaha. It seems we've found the right place. Rox evidently realized this as well, and he turned to look at York. Kid. Thank you for the information. York smiled calmly. Don't be so quick to thank me, the frozen giants may not necessarily be on this island. There's a gap of several decades until Luffy's era, who knows if the world government moved those frozen giants around. Wahahaha. Rox didn't mind upon hearing this, he waved his hand. Mates. Charge in. Plunder everything you can. Kill everyone you can. I'm going to turn this place upside down. Awoo. The members of the Rox pirate crew cheered loudly. Golden Lion Shiki was the first to charge out. With his float fruit ability, he quickly flew above a marine warship, drew the longswords from his waist, and with 2 swift slashes, the massive warship was instantly split into 4 pieces. Whitebeard stood at the bow, punching the air, and terrifying glass-like cracks spread through the air, causing all the defensive structures on the island's perimeter to crumble at once. Charlotte Linlin, stepping on Thundercloud Zeus, quickly flew over the cluster of buildings after Golden Lion, holding a small sun and throwing it downwards. Terrifying flames exploded, engulfing a large number of Marines who had just gathered. York stood on the deck, watching the 3 masters' display of skill from afar, and chuckled softly. Were they provoked by my Haoshoku haki yesterday, and are now deliberately showing off their strength to me today? Such childish behavior. The pirate ship docked, and Rox, along with the other members of the pirate crew, rushed out. York still leisurely walked at the very end. He would not compete with this group of people like children. Holy light shines. A second sun seemed to rise over the land. Those marine soldiers who had been lucky enough to avoid the previous 3 attacks had just struggled to crawl out of the rubble with all their might. Looking up and seeing York, who was radiating holy light all over his body, at that moment, they felt as if they were witnessing the descent of a holy child from a mythical tale. Immediately following that, they felt their eyelids heavy as mountains, and an overwhelming drowsiness swept over them. Sleep. As long as you sleep, all troubles will be gone. This is just a nightmare, everything will be fine when you wake up. A gentle voice sounded, and those Marines who still wanted to persevere due to their duties slowly closed their eyes under the persuasion of that gentle voice. Gradually, their breathing stopped in their sleep. They were forever immersed in the dream, unable to wake up again. Slumber of death. An alternative use of York's happy fruit. Because sleep is also a kind of happiness. As long as one closes their eyes under the light, they will fall into eternal slumber. Fighting and killing are so unpleasant. I am kind-hearted and cannot bear to see bloodshed. Strolling through the bloody battlefield created by Golden Lion, Whitebeard, and others, York still wore his characteristic smile. I'm granting all you marine soldiers a painless and peaceful sleep. In your next life, don't come to the new world to be a marine again. How much money do you even earn in a month? Wouldn't it be better to just coast by in a 4 seas branch? Punk Hazard, before Kaido's destruction in Akainu and Aokiji's duel, had a far grander architectural scale than York had seen in anime and manga in his previous life. The number of Marines stationed inside was also far greater than he had anticipated. However, this was ultimately a top-secret location, impossible for outsiders to know about, so the world government naturally hadn't dispatched high-level combat forces to guard it constantly. How could the Rox pirate crew attack here? I don't know. Quickly, send a distress call to the nearest G5 branch. We just tried to contact them. But for some reason, there's no response. Could it be? Quickly, send a distress call to the headquarters. At the same time, first ensure the safety of the scientists. Get them all off the island. Then destroy the data. The Rock's pirate crew's sudden attack caught Punk Hazard completely off guard. They had never imagined that one day pirates would actually invade them, and the entire island instantly fell into a state of panic. Amidst the chaos, the Rock's pirate crew massacred and frantically searched for storage rooms and similar locations. Mama mama ma. I found it. Charlotte Linlin's exclamation attracted the attention of Kaido, who was closest to her. He quickly arrived and was astonished to find that the storage room Charlotte Linlin had opened was filled with gold and treasures. What? I thought you found the frozen giants. Mama mama ma. As for the frozen giants, others can look for them, we prioritize stealing the treasures. Kaido thought about it and felt it made sense, so he and Charlotte Linlin began to pack up the treasures in the storage room. Haha. I found it. On the other side, Stussy, who was acting alone, also let out an exclamation similar to Charlotte Linlin's. A large group of scientists in white coats instantly broke out in cold sweat as they saw the blonde beauty suddenly appear before them. Science thief. Buckingham. Quick. Move fast. We absolutely cannot let her get the data. Bang. Stussy appeared next to several scientists as if teleporting, kicked one of them flying, then aimed her gun at another's head and fired directly, splattering blood. After quickly killing all the scientists in the laboratory, Stussy began to organize the research data that hadn't been destroyed yet. Do you need help? A soft voice suddenly sounded from behind. Stussy instinctively wanted to agree, but in the next second, she instantly dodged several meters away. York's hand was suspended in midair, having just barely missed touching Stussy's shoulder. York. Stussy's gaze was fixed on York's raised hand. What were you trying to do just now? Do what? Haven't you already guessed? York smiled and raised his head, pushing his palm forward, and several holy light tentacles instantly shot out. Stussy had suffered a loss before and dared not be touched by these tentacles again. She swung her long legs and turned to run directly, showing no reluctance for the research data she hadn't had time to collect. Quite decisive. York smiled calmly, retracted the holy light tentacles that were destined not to catch her, and turned to sort through the documents in the laboratory. Well, no rush, you'll be my prey sooner or later. Licking his lips with his tongue, York was already somewhat anticipating what Whitebeard's expression would be like once Stussy became his prey. Found it. Whitebeard let out a slightly deep sigh. I didn't expect the frozen giants to actually exist. 10 minutes later. All members of the Rock's pirate crew gathered around Whitebeard. Before them was an open freezer. The interior was dim, and cold air furiously poured out. However, through the light shining in after the door opened, one could vaguely see. The entire freezer space, from ceiling to floor, had countless prisoner corpses frozen, and most of them were of the giant race's height and build. Hey, York, use your ability to go in and light it up. I refuse. My ability isn't for use as a light bulb. How about I teach you advanced hockey techniques when we get back? Deal. York walked into the freezer, emitting holy light from his entire body, illuminating the entire freezer clearly. The members of the Rock's pirate crew collectively groaned. Except for Charlotte Linlin and Wang Ji, who had already hidden by the side of the door, everyone else had pleasant blushes on their faces and arched their backs. Rox led the unaffected Whitebeard, Kaido, and Stussy into the cold storage, looking up at the countless frozen corpses on both sides of the cold storage aisle. Found it. It really is here. Rox was first shocked, then an endless joy surged within him. York, you've really helped me a great deal this time. Whoa ha 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 ha. The legendary Great Hammer Battle Group, I've finally found it. Whoa ha 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 ha. York, while maintaining the holy light to illuminate the freezer, mercilessly refuted Rox. It's not entirely confirmed yet. They are still just corpses for now. Whether they are the legendary Great Hammer Battle Group is still questionable. Rox waved his hand. No need to doubt. They are the Great Hammer Battle Group I'm looking for. Seeing Rox's conviction, York no longer tried to persuade him. In fact, he also believed that this was the Great Hammer Battle Group Rox was looking for. After all, in his previous life, Oda rarely gave invalid information in special scenes. The manga storyline had just entered the Giant Country arc before York's transmigration, so he wasn't clear what the Great Hammer Battle Group was, but since the Great Hammer Battle Group Rox was looking for were frozen giants, then it was highly probable that these were the ones here at Punk Hazard. Now the problem is how to transport them back to Hashinosu Island. Rox's pirate cruise ship was enormous, even a typical marine flagship looked like a small boat next to it. But the number of frozen giants here was simply too great, well over 100, and among them were quite a few ancient giants with heights of 60 to 70 meters. Hey, Shiki, I'll trouble you to use your ability to transport this cold storage back through the air. I refuse. It's too tiring. You can take an extra share of the treasure when we get back. Deal. Shiki reached out and touched the floor, allowing the power of the float fruit to permeate the entire cold storage, as well as the entire large building where the cold storage was located. Rumble rumble rumble. Within the vast complex of buildings, a massive structure slowly rose from the ground. Countless scientists who had not yet been killed, as well as those who had managed to board ships and escape to sea, simultaneously gasped at the sight. Oh no. That's the research institute where the cold storage is located. Or Rox and his pirate crew trying to move the entire research institute. Hey, look. What? Reinforcements have arrived. Haha. The reinforcements are here. Now the Rox pirate crew is finished. When Rox and his group emerged from the research institute, they saw a large fleet of marine ships, which had almost completely surrounded Punk Hazard Island. Marine support. As quick as ever. Rox roared, "All right men. Prepare to sally forth. Sink them. And then plunder them." The Rox pirate crew boarded their ship and sailed straight into the Marines' encircling Grand Fleet. Rox himself stood at the bow, clearing a path with his sword. His slashes were not normal slashes, instead, they were like cannon fire. With a single swing, a warship directly exploded. Charlotte Linlin, treading on Zeus the Thundercloud, was the first to charge into a warship, and piercing screams immediately erupted. Golden Lion nimbly moved through the cannon fire, lightly touching the hull of a warship with his hand. The next second, the warship quickly detached from the sea and rose into the sky. Then it flipped over, like an overturned jar, spilling all the Marines inside. Whitebeard, for the treasure on the warship, put away his ability and directly leapt 1,000 meters to board the Marine battleship. The others were much the same, each displaying their strength, charging into the Marine fleet and slaughtering them. York currently had no long-range displacement ability, so he chose to climb to the top of the pirate ship's mast, using the height advantage. Holy light illumination. He clasped his hands in front of him, his entire being appearing solemn and dignified. Pure holy light suddenly covered the entire battlefield. The vast Marine fleet, almost all the Marine soldiers standing on the deck, collectively stiffened, and then fell down, their faces showing expressions of pleasure. Kurushi, Kimochi. Sugoi. The members of the Rox pirate crew also stiffened collectively. While suppressing the changes in their bodies, they turned back and cursed angrily. York, you fool. We got hit too. Sorry, my ability is a full coverage strike, there's no way to precisely target. York's apology sounded insincere, and in fact, the holy light he released became even more dazzling. Whitebeard looked back, a hint of apprehension flashing in his eyes. York's ability, one either had to break it with powerful haki or simply abstain from women. Once one got involved, they basically couldn't escape the fate of being suppressed. Ha! Golden Lion suddenly roared, his haki surging throughout his body, forcefully breaking York's holy light's influence on him. Although the body's reaction couldn't be completely eliminated for a while, his rationality and freedom of movement successfully returned. Seeing this, the others also one by one forcefully used haki to break the ability, proving that they had only been enjoying the pleasure York's ability brought them before, and were not completely powerless to resist. Rox watched this scene, secretly nodding. The group of companions he had recruited now were quite strong, none of them were weak. At the same time, another thought emerged in his mind. In the future, if the pirate crew recruited new members, whether they could overcome York's ability might serve as a standard. Those who couldn't even break York's most basic holy light illumination should all go be mere fodder. And so, under the field suppression provided by York, The entire marine fleet, though not all killed, was plundered clean, and all the ships were sunk. Marineford. The active admiral, Sora, slammed his fist on the desk. Who exactly is this York? When did the Rock's pirate crew get such a troublesome ability user? On his desk, a photo of York, taken by a marine soldier at great risk, was displayed. The handsome youth clasped his hands, a faint smile on his face, his black hair fluttering in the wind. Sacred white light radiated from him, making his entire being appear solemn and dignified, like a Buddha. Adolf D. York. Also in the office, Sengoku, whose military rank was currently only vice admiral, also held a photo of York. I feel like I've heard that name somewhere. What? Sora looked up in surprise. Think hard. Sengoku, what's this kid's background? Sengoku frowned in thought. Wait, don't rush. I've definitely seen or heard this face or name somewhere, but the impression isn't deep, and I can't quite recall it in a short time. Seeing that Sengoku was taking a long time, Sora let Sengoku ponder in the office while he went to see the active fleet admiral. York's ability was too troublesome. According to the marine soldiers who returned from the battlefield, everyone who was on the deck or by a window, anyone illuminated by the holy light, was affected by the ability. Conversely, those who stayed in the ship's cabins, responsible for the warship's power, were not affected at all. Additionally, some bachelors who had no girlfriends, no wives, and maintained their purity, even if they stood on the warship's deck, were not affected. As long as they are illuminated by the light, they lose their will to fight. This full coverage strike ability is truly terrifying. Even if they knew the evasion method through the accounts of the surviving marine soldiers, this ability was almost impossible to counter. They couldn't possibly create an entire army of virgins to exclusively fight the Rock's pirate crew, could they? Among the vast marine force, how many had no girlfriends, no wives, and also maintained their purity? What if they all died in one of the battles with the Rock's pirate crew? Where would they find a second batch? Finally, after deliberation, the Marine High Command decided to temporarily halt the encirclement of the Rock's pirate crew, and at the same time, set a high bounty on York. Given the brutal competitive mechanism within the Rock's pirate crew, as long as York's bounty was sufficiently inflated, there would always be some daring individuals who would challenge him. As long as they could eliminate York through internal strife, the Marines would no longer face such a situation of being completely suppressed when dealing with Rocks. Hashinosu Island. Rocks and his group, after defeating the Marines supporting Punk Hazard, successfully returned here. After placing the research facility containing the frozen giants on the back of the Skull Mountain, the entire pirate crew immediately began their treasure distribution meeting. All the plundered treasures were evenly divided into 16 shares. The 14 core members of the pirate crew, excluding York and Kaido, who were interns, including Rocks, each took 1 share. Shiki received an extra share because he successfully brought back the frozen giants using his ability. 13 shares of the 16 shares of treasure had been distributed. Afterward, Rocks, citing York's provision of crucial intelligence for this operation, also gave him a share. 2 shares of treasure remained. Half of 1 share went to Kaido. This was actually the normal dividend for an intern. The remaining 1.5 shares were distributed by Rocks among the many pirate foot soldiers who participated in the operation. With the distribution complete, everyone returned to their quarters. York, carrying his share of the treasure, gazed at Stussy's retreating figure. This woman actually didn't report to Whitebeard, or perhaps, the people in this pirate crew were already accustomed to the daily routine of mutual sneak attacks. Hey, York, your bounty poster is out. Newgate. Hashinosu Island Tavern. Whitebeard put away his treasures and came here to drink. Stussy sat across from him, complaining with a hint of resentment. That brat York, he ambushed me at Punk Hazard. With his devil fruit ability, you can imagine what he was trying to do when he ambushed me. Oh, you mentioned that on the ship. Whitebeard calmly drank his sake, as if Stussy's complaint was just about choosing the wrong red number when leaving the house this morning. Newgate. Stussy stomped her foot in shame and anger. Why aren't you reacting at all? I'm your woman. Huh, when were you my woman? Whitebeard looked puzzled, and Stussy angrily turned her head away. If you keep this up, I won't talk to you anymore. Oh, if you don't want to talk, then don't. Newgate. I actually think that kid York is pretty good. He's young, and his devil fruit ability isn't bad. I just don't know about his hockey. Stussy was completely enraged by Whitebeard and stormed out of her seat. You pay for today's drinks yourself. Hey. Wait a minute. Hey. York, your bounty poster is out. Before York could even put his treasures in his room, Rox walked over with a newspaper and a bounty poster. Guess how much your bounty is, kid? I can't guess, but I think it should be at least 100 million berries. After all, his ability has a very large attack range, and anyone who has tasted blood and doesn't have strong hockey will be instantly killed. The world government's standard for bounties is actually based on the level of threat, not entirely on combat power. Therefore, York's initial bounty would very likely exceed Charlotte Linland's and Kaido's initial bounties. Wahahaha. 600 million berries. Rox laughed heartily as he showed the bounty poster to York. Besides a photo of York activating his ability, it also had the number 600 million. How much? 600 million. York was slightly surprised. He didn't expect his bounty to be so high. This was his first bounty. To directly give 600 million for a first bounty, what was the world government thinking? Didn't they say that Luffy's era was when inflation would happen? Something abnormal must be afoot. York began to deeply consider what the underlying intention of the world government was in giving him such a high bounty. Could it be that they want other pirates who want to rise up to take me out? That's a possibility. However, his ability is so useful that Rox wouldn't let him be easily taken out. Of course, to be safe, he also needed to improve his strength as quickly as possible. After all, only by being strong enough could he fear no schemes or tactics. Thinking this, York took the bounty poster and newspaper from Rox's hand. He wanted to see what kind of story the world government had fabricated for him to make other pirates try to take him out. He quickly scanned the newspaper information. The content wasn't completely fabricated, but it clearly described the characteristics of York's ability. For example, he couldn't be exposed to light, and a virgin could ignore York's ability, and so on. Hey. The world government's desire to have someone take me out is truly obvious to everyone. Are they really that afraid of my ability? Wahahahaha. York's reaction made Rox laugh heartily. Suddenly, he changed the subject. I heard that you seem to have made a move against Buckingham at Punk Hazard. Ah, is there a problem? York directly countered Rox. Kaido's pirate crew rules didn't include a rule against attacking comrades. Or are you, Rox, trying to establish that rule today? No, not at all. Rox shook his head. I'm just here to tell you to restrain yourself while on this island. This is territory I worked hard to claim, and I don't want it to be ruined by you guys because of some messy things. York sneered. Who is it that almost caused an internal conflict in the pirate crew before? However, since Rox himself came to tell him this new rule, he naturally had no intention of challenging Rox's authority. I can't attack Stussy on Hashinosu Island, but it's fine elsewhere, right? And not on my ship either. Only these two places. Are there any others? No. Just these two places. York nodded, indicating he understood. Quickly putting away the treasures he had been carrying, York actively sought out Rox. Earlier at Punk Hazard, you said you'd teach me advanced hockey usage. When do we start? Quite impatient, kid. Of course. The sooner I get stronger, the better. That makes sense. The next moment, Rox drew his sword. Black and red armament hockey, like lightning, coiled around the blade, and he unleashed a sword strike from a distance at York. Boom. With a loud bang, York was sent flying backward, crashing through countless buildings and knocking over countless pirates along the way, finally embedding himself in the outer wall of a building in the town center. From the foot of Skull Mountain, flying all the way to the town center, York flew almost a quarter of the island, which was almost equivalent to Luffy punching Doflamingo away. This is York, who just joined the Rox pirate crew a few days ago. An internal conflict. He was taken out. Bring that brat York back to me in one piece. Rox, voice echoed across the entire island through the broadcast. The pirates on the island trembled at the sound, but no one dared to disobey Rox's command. They carefully pried the unconscious York from the wall, gently laid him on a stretcher, and then carefully carried him all the way to Rox's presence at the foot of Skull Mountain. Get more doctors. Treat this kid. When York woke up, he was completely bandaged like a mummy. He's really ruthless. That fool rocks. He thought he knew who Kaido learned his mace teaching method from. But, to be fair, after being cut by rocks with that sword strike, he really did gain some insights and understanding. Before this, York's training had always been self-taught. Armament hockey was learned purely through getting hit, relying on the instinct not to be beaten, and he successfully mastered it, but it was limited to the basic applications of hardening and coiling. Observation hockey was the same. He learned it by getting hit with sticks while blindfolded, relying on his body's instincts. Similarly, his use of observation hockey was limited to normal evasion. Haoshoku had been mentioned before. The moment York realized he had transmigrated to the world of One Piece, he successfully awakened it. Currently, it remained at the level of proficient release, still far from Haoshoku coding. As for his happy devil fruit, that was even more unconventional. It wasn't stolen, nor did the devil fruit actively seek him out. He purely wished upon a small sweet melon repeatedly, twisting reality with his will to forcibly create it. That's why his devil fruit ability was so outrageous. It not only had the characteristics of the Mero Mero no Mi but also the ability characteristics from another anime he had watched in his previous life. In the evening, the sky was a fiery red. York, wrapped in bandages, painstakingly climbed into the right eye socket of the Skull Mountain on Hashinosu Island. He exhaled softly, sat cross-legged on the edge of the eye socket, facing the town below, clasped his hands in front of him, and radiated a holy light. This kid, instead of quietly recuperating from his injuries, what is he trying to do? Rocks noticed York's actions and expressed that he didn't understand York's behavior. Holy light shines. The town of Hashinosu Island was completely covered by the holy light released by York, and many pirates wandering the streets fell to the ground, all with expressions of enjoyment and happiness on their faces. Immediately after, under rocks, several holy light tentacles spread out from York's body. From the right eye socket of the Skull Mountain, they extended downwards to the nearest pirates, gently coiling around their bodies, and a faint pink light seemed to be drawn from these pirates, flowing along the tentacles into York's body. Receiving this supply of pink light, York's pale complexion instantly became a little rosier. Then, York, whose condition had recovered, released even more tentacles. And this number also increased geometrically as more targets were extracted. Until night fell, the tentacles that covered the entire island dissipated like bubbles, and the holy light from York's body also stopped being released. He slowly stood up from the right eye socket of the Skull Mountain, tore off the bandages on his body, and his previous severe injuries were now completely healed. Rox was right beside him, looking at York with a surprised expression. Your devil fruit ability has this kind of use. After sitting cross-legged for over an hour, York stretched and moved his muscles and bones. Otherwise, what did you think I relied on to come to Hashinosu Island alone? Wahahaha. It truly is a powerful ability. But I've never seemed to hear of an ability like yours before. York smiled mysteriously upon hearing this. The number of devil fruit is not constant, they can increase or decrease at any time. It's not surprising if a completely unexpected devil fruit ability appears someday. Wahahaha. You know a lot about devil fruit. A strange light flickered in Rock's eyes, and York met his gaze without flinching. The feeling is mutual. Crack. The sound of crimson lightning rubbing against the air rang out, and Rock's long blade at his waist unsheathed an inch. How about it? Now that you've fully recovered, do you want to continue your previous hockey training? Not for now. After I digest the gains from last time, I will actively seek you out again. The night passed without incident. Most of the pirates on the island had a good dream thanks to York's ability. Aside from feeling a bit tired in their kidneys, there was no other abnormality. Similarly, Rox showed no intention of taking any action. Perhaps he had just made a score and needed to rest, or perhaps he was still contemplating how to resurrect the frozen giants behind the mountain. Hashinosu Island Tavern. Stussy had another day of futile efforts. Whitebeard remained indifferent to her complaints, as if he truly felt nothing for her. Didn't he know that the people pursuing her could line up all the way from Hashinosu Island to the Red Line? This blockhead, he truly doesn't know how good he has it. After complaining about Whitebeard, Stussy suddenly stopped at the door of her room. A box was placed at her door, with a note attached, "Scientific research materials." Stussy slowly walked forward and opened the box directly. She wasn't worried about any traps. Rox had just established new rules yesterday, forbidding attacking crewmates on Hashinosu Island and pirate ships. As long as York didn't want to be killed by Rox, he wouldn't cause any trouble while on the island. The box opened, and as expected, it contained the scientific research materials from Punk Hazard that she hadn't had time to collect. Sigh. Stussy let out a soft sigh. Why don't the ones I like me, and the one who likes me is a perverted brat? Back to York. He was currently behind the large skull mountain, practicing the technique of armament hockey emission, which is what the people of Wano country call Ruo. Bang! Bang bang! York stood in front of a rock, continuously punching it with both fists. The key is not the amount of force, but concentration and release. The sword strike rocks used on him earlier not only utilized the technique of Haoshoku coating but also armament hockey emission, and many other techniques. York couldn't clearly discern all the specific techniques for now, so he focused his main energy on armament hockey emission. Half a month passed in this peaceful life. During this half-month, York was immersed in training, and regarding Stussy's so-called hunt, apart from delivering one batch of scientific research materials, there was nothing else, as if he had forgotten about Stussy. Done. Bang. With a punch, without even touching the rock, it successfully exploded from the inside out. This meant that York had successfully mastered the techniques of armament hockey emission and internal destruction. Armament hockey emission and internal destruction are both different applications of emission techniques. Basically, those who can master armament hockey emission will naturally master internal destruction. 9-year compulsory education truly didn't deceive me. Relying on his accumulated learning and comprehension abilities from his previous life, York only took half a month to master a technique that Luffy hadn't learned even after 2 years with Rayleigh. Although Luffy later had a highlight moment of awakening after being hit by Kaido's 3 clubs, that was the world's will giving him a cheat, not normal training. Calculated this way, York's talent was still quite good. And with York mastering armament hockey emission, Rox finally issued a new order of action. Set sail, lads. The target of this operation is the International Charity Alliance Temple. The Rox pirate crew set sail again. Seeing Stussy again after half a month, the woman was as beautiful as ever. However, her gaze towards York now clearly carried a strong sense of vigilance and apprehension. York smiled calmly. Be careful to remain vigilant during the operation. I might attack you at any time. Stussy's lips twitched slightly in embarrassment. She stood next to Whitebeard and said haughtily, "You don't know yet. I'm Newgate's woman. If you dare to lay a hand on me, be careful Newgate doesn't kill you." Whitebeard turned to look at Stussy, saying nothing. York, meanwhile, watched Whitebeard's reaction with a smile. Whitebeard's posture didn't seem to indicate much concern for Stussy. As a man, if his woman becomes someone else's hunting target and he doesn't get angry about it, either he doesn't care about this woman at all, or he enjoys being a cuckold and likes the feeling of being cheated on. York wasn't sure which one Whitebeard was yet. But no matter which one, the relationship between him and Stussy didn't seem as intimate as he had understood in his previous life. International Charity Alliance Temple. A charity organization in the Pirate King's world. But just like most charity organizations in York's previous life, charity was merely a name and a slogan. Their true nature was to swindle and hoard money. The Rox pirate cruise ship docked at the island where the International Charity Alliance Temple was located. Charlotte Linlin, Whitebeard, and Golden Lion, among others, rushed in immediately. The money-grabbing competition has begun. Ha ha ha. Let's see who can grab the most. York, as always, was the last one to step onto the island. He looked up at the magnificent temple before him, a faint smile on his face. Allow me to test whether your temple truly harbors virtuous and eminent monks. With that, he clasped his hands together, bathed in holy light, and slowly walked into the temple. HMMPH. Not long after entering the temple, a muffled grunt sounded not far from York. On this trip, Charlotte Linlin and her group focused on snatching money and didn't kill many people, so there were many survivors. However, when York appeared before them, these people dressed as monks all let out a muffled grunt, then reacted just like the pirates on Hashinosu Island. They curled up and writhed on the ground, their faces filled with blissful and joyful smiles. A temple. York let out a soft sigh of emotion. As expected, most are places that hide depravity and harbor filth. As he finished speaking, York pushed his palm forward, and countless holy light tentacles wrapped around all the monks. There was no physical strangulation like a snake, but their pleasure was instantly amplified dozens of times. Oh 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 oh. The monks let out moans that were indistinguishable between pleasure and pain, their eyeballs rapidly rolled upwards, and their entire brains were completely filled with pleasure. Since you have broken your vows of celibacy, then die of lust. York pronounced judgment on these monks. Under the catalysis of the holy light tentacles, the entangled monks foamed at the mouth, their brains ultimately unable to withstand the impact of pleasure, their nerves burst, blood vessels exploded, and they died of cerebral hemorrhage. Of course, saying they died of romantical exhaustion would also be fine. And as York ventured deeper into the temple, more and more monks were affected by his ability. York showed no mercy, bestowing upon all of them the judgment of death by lust. I am still too kind-hearted after all. When killing, I give them endless pleasure before they die. I believe they will not resent me when they reach hell. He walked and killed all the way. The group, who usually served as the main force of slaughter for the Rock's pirate crew, had now killed less than a fraction of the number York had. Alas, this is not my fault. If these monks were proper monks, how could they have died because of me? York's face showed a hint of compassionate concern as he finally reached the grand abbot of the temple. This old monk with a white beard, predictably, lay before York like a maggot. Hey, lady benefactor, you wouldn't want your husband to know, would you? York's expression was indifferent as he looked down at the old man from above. The holy light tentacles activated, wrapped around him, and pleasure was enhanced 50 times. Awoo awoo. The old monk, who had just been smirking, instantly let out a shrill scream. I can't. Lady benefactor, please, spare my life. As blood mixed with white fluid appeared beneath the old monk, he also died under the judgment of lust. Not a single qualified monk. York let out a soft breath, looking at the group who were loading treasures out of the temple's storeroom. Stussy silently swallowed a mouthful of saliva. She suddenly realized that York's ability was quite terrifying. The others also showed a hint of apprehension on their faces. If before, they only thought York's ability was a bit tricky, but posed no great threat beyond bringing them pleasure. Then now, if they were to be inadvertently suppressed by York's ability beforehand, they might not even have room to resist, becoming completely immersed in pleasure, enjoying themselves to death. Without the monks' obstruction, the treasure loading work proceeded exceptionally smoothly. However, the temple's treasure room was somewhat like a cellar. A huge containment space below, but with only a small opening at the top for entry and exit. And there was no ladder, relying entirely on a lift for access. Whitebeard, Kaido, and the new member Jin, who joined later, the three of them along with Golden Lion, were responsible for entering this cellar to load the treasures. Then, Golden Lion's ability would be used to float the treasures out from the soul top exit. Until all the treasures were loaded, and all of them had floated out, Golden Lion himself also flew out, but Whitebeard, Kaido, and Jin were left below. Let's go. All the treasures are ours. Golden Lion greeted everyone above with a grin. Hey! Whitebeard's furious roar echoed from the cellar. Lower the lift. We're still in the basement. You fools. They're so noisy, Shiki. Wang Ji grumbled, and Golden Lion instantly froze. Oh no. I forgot about those three. Then, a cannonball was thrown into the basement by Golden Lion. Bye-bye. HMPH. Whitebeard, Kaido, and Jin, who were waiting for a response in the basement, collectively showed a question mark as they watched the cannonball fly in. The next second, a massive roar erupted, and the entire island, even the surrounding sea, tilted irregularly towards one corner as if continental plates were shifting. Everyone still in the temple, except for Golden Lion who could fly, all fell to the lowest level due to the collapsing ground. The entire temple collapsed. Charlotte Linlin complained, the bagged treasures are scattered all over the place. York, looking a bit disheveled, climbed out of the ruins. He hadn't anticipated such an event. His head accidentally hit a stone during the fall, resulting in a large bump. My mindset is all wrong. Although I logically know this is the Rock's pirate crew, I habitually treat it as a normal pirate crew. In this crew, one must constantly be wary of the aftershocks of battles erupting due to internal strife, otherwise, one truly wouldn't know how they died. Kaido. I'm envious, I want one too. Whitebeard. What? An ability. You'd best choose carefully, because it will be with you for life. Kaido. You're right. Whitebeard and Kaido chatted as they emerged from the thick smoke, while Jin, with a face full of fury, raised a large axe. Hey! Who is it that plotted against us just now? York didn't respond. Wang Ji silently raised his finger, pointing to Golden Lion flying in the sky. It was you, Shiki. You fool. Oh, my little Jin, so you're still alive. I was so worried earlier. I'm going to kill you. In the dim corridor, Stussy fled forward in a slight panic. She looked back from time to time. A handsome, smiling young man radiating holy light was pressing closer. It was as if no matter how she ran, she couldn't shake him off. Stussy, stop struggling, just immerse yourself in my joy. A pure white, seemingly light-composed tentacle, yet with special magic patterns on its surface, shot out from the young man's hand. Stussy's face showed terror, and she used every means to flee forward. Finally, she successfully escaped the pursuit of these tentacles and arrived in an empty room. York, that kid, is too creepy. Stussy leaned on her knees, panting slightly in the room. Saying my ability is creepy, you really hurt my feelings. York's gentle voice suddenly echoed from all directions, and Stussy raised her eyes in terror. She saw that the walls, which were originally made of rock, had all turned into wriggling magic-patterned tentacles at some point. Stussy snapped her head back. The path she came from was also blocked, and York himself was almost in front of her. Stussy angrily counterattacked York, but her fist was caught by York. The young man's strength was unexpectedly powerful. Once her fist was caught, she couldn't break free at all. Stussy struggled with all her might, but in the end, she could only watch helplessly as the countless magic-patterned tentacles drew closer and closer. With a scream, Stussy suddenly sat up in bed. She nervously observed everything in the room, confirming it was indeed her bedroom. With one hand on her forehead, her palm covered in sweat, Stussy sighed softly. It was just a dream after all. As she calmed her mind and prepared to lie down to continue sleeping, she suddenly noticed something unusual. Why wasn't it Newgate? Stussy's face flushed, and her eyes were complex. Could it be? No. Impossible. I absolutely refuse to admit it. After returning from the International Charity Alliance Temple, York's new bounty was quickly released. 660 million berries. It was only 60 million berries more than before, but the description in the newspaper was much more exaggerated. It spoke of the most evil ability in history, a desire demon that forcibly made people X themselves to death, and so on. In short, almost all negative comments related to succubi were attributed to York. For a moment, York really couldn't figure out whether the world government was saying his devil fruit ability was evil, or if it was promoting him as a real-life succubus, urging those pirates who wanted to have fun with a succubus to come find him quickly. Probably the latter. York guessed. Sea voyages can be very boring. Many pirates would keep goats or women on board, for purposes that those who know, both to relieve stress and as emergency rations. Now, a devil fruit user who could bring joy anytime, anywhere had appeared. Regardless of whether he was male or female, just for this devil fruit ability, it was worth snatching him onto their ship. Not to mention York's decent looks. In this world where the average male appearance score is below 60, York's looks were definitely 90 points at least. Even if he didn't become a pirate and became an idol instead, he would definitely be a huge success. Therefore, some pirates who swung both ways might even want to do something to York himself. Well, when soldiers come, block them. When water comes, cover it with earth. Ever since he obtained the Joy fruit, York knew this day would come sooner or later. There was no escaping it. The best method was to kill. Kill until everyone was afraid. Kill until everyone only dared to beg him for joy and dared not ask to control him, and the crisis would resolve itself. So, after reading the newspaper, York once again found Rocks, asking to learn advanced hockey applications. The outcome was no different from last time. He was cut down by Rox's sword and sent flying half a town away. However, it was slightly better than last time, as York's consciousness did not fall into a coma this time. He watched as Rox gave the order to heal him. Although the pirates on the island were somewhat restless because of that newspaper, seeing York still awake, coupled with Rox's command, no one dared to do anything in the end. In the evening, York, who had recovered some mobility, did the same as last time. He ascended to the right eye socket of Skull Mountain, released holy light and tentacles covering the entire island, and absorbed life force from all the pirates on the island to heal himself. None of the pirates resisted. Almost all of them stood in the streets, welcoming the holy light and allowing the tentacles to entwine their bodies. Joy, Kamochi. Watching the entire island fall into an ocean of joy, Stussy, standing at a window on Skull Mountain, had a complex expression. Will I also become like that one day? No. I love Newgate. I will never yield to York's ability. In a flash, half a year passed. During these 6 months, Rox did not initiate any further actions. It was as if the money stolen from the International Charity Alliance temple last time was so much that he wouldn't act again until it was spent. York himself didn't care about acting or not, he was there to learn advanced experience and strengthen himself. Not going out on missions allowed him to focus on improving himself. And in these 6 months, by constantly being knocked flying by rocks and then using holy light to cover the entire island to heal himself, York, although he hadn't learned Haoshoku Haki coding that quickly, had successfully learned Rox's sword techniques. Gripping the long katana at his waist, stepping into a bow stance, facing the sea ahead, York exhaled deeply. A common katana, forged by a pirate on the island, was drawn, without any Haki power attached, but it was like a cannon blast, creating a huge splash in the sea ahead. Yo! You brat actually learned it. Rox was clearly surprised to see this. He didn't expect that in just half a year, his signature sword technique had been learned by this kid. York sheathed his katana and smiled at Rox. How is it? Do you feel fear? Are you afraid to teach me anymore? Wahahaha. Me, afraid. Don't get too arrogant, kid. Rox instantly drew his sword and cleaved York away. Just like before, York flew nearly half the island, his consciousness almost falling into a coma. This move almost made York misunderstand that his growth over the past 6 months had made no progress. Until one day, the application of a new member to the pirate crew dispelled York's doubts. Is this Hashinosu Island? It's too dirty and messy. A woman with light orange wavy hair, exquisite features, a graceful and tall figure, and carrying a snake, stepped onto the land of Hashinosu Island. The pirates on the island were thrown into a great commotion by her arrival. It's the Pirate Empress. Gloriosa-sama. Oh my god. She's actually coming to this island. Am I dreaming? A commotion broke out at Hashinosu Island's port due to Gloriosa's sudden arrival. Countless pirates were captivated by her beauty, becoming her devoted admirers. Oh my, you're all so cute. Gloriosa winked alluringly, and a large group of pirates instantly fell to the ground, their eyes forming hearts. Can anyone tell me where the Rox pirate crew is? I want to join them. I know. Numerous pirates eagerly volunteered, vying to lead the way. With her beauty paving the way, no one blocked her path. Before long, Gloriosa smoothly arrived at the base of the mountain, which had transformed from a fish-shaped peak into a skull-shaped one. Rox, annoyed by the commotion of the pirates, directly unleashed a terrifying conqueror's haki. Black and red lightning tore through the air, and a large group of pirates instantly fainted. What's all this chattering about? Has some scoundrel come knocking? Rox led the members of the Rox pirate crew out of the mountain, but they all stopped in their tracks. Pirate Empress, Gloriosa. Gloriosa smiled charmingly. What? Am I not welcome? I've come to join you. Rox, gaze swept over the curvaceous Gloriosa, his eyes subtly hinting at expectation. Why are you alone? Isn't Shaki coming? Gloriosa's beautiful face stiffened, and the corner of her mouth twitched with slight displeasure. Why is everyone's mouth full of Shaki? Wahahahaha. Because she's just too beautiful. Rox showed no regard for Gloriosa's feelings, unhesitatingly displaying his admiration for Shaki. The other male members of the Rox pirate crew, except for York, all collectively sighed softly. If only it were Shaki who had come. This collective sighing for Shaki completely ignited Gloriosa's fury. She stomped her foot, also releasing Conqueror's Haki. A captivating shockwave swept through, and everyone regained their composure. Rocks. I'll only say this one last time. I'm here to join you. If you don't welcome me, I can leave immediately. Wahahaha. Join us. No problem. The now serious Rocks glanced at York, who remained still. Hey, York. Test our prospective new member, see if she can overcome your ability. If she can, she's our new member. If she can't, she's yours to do with as you please. York smiled at these words and stepped out of the formation. Rocks, you said that. My attacking her won't violate the rules you set. Wahahaha. Before she officially becomes a Nakama, you can do whatever you want. Gloriosa looked at the approaching York with a serious expression. It's you, isn't it, Fallen Succubus York? Fallen Succubus, this was the title the newspapers gave him after the last International Charity Alliance Temple incident. I didn't expect you to be as young as the newspapers said, what a cute little guy. Gloriosa's serious expression quickly turned to confidence, as if York was no different from an ordinary young man in her eyes. She winked at York. My dear brother, go easy on me, let your big sister pass, how about it? York said nothing, only to suddenly appear less than half a meter in front of Gloriosa the next instant. Drawing his sword, the cannonball sword technique he learned from Rocks successfully struck its target. As if a cannonball had exploded, Gloriosa crossed her arms and retreated, her body half bent. What a fierce little brother. Gloriosa's expression returned to seriousness. The power of that single sword strike indicated that York's strength wasn't just reliant on his devil fruit ability. At the same time, the Rocks pirate crew collectively let out a gasp. This kid, when did he learn that? That's Rocks' sword technique. How did he learn it? Rocks, when did you teach him? Everyone's gaze focused on Rocks, who let out a wahahaha laugh. Didn't you all see it when I was teaching him? Everyone looked confused, but only Kaido quickly caught on. You mean when you were disciplining York before, you were actually teaching him sword techniques? What? How is that possible? Kaido, what are you talking about? The members of the Rocks pirate crew completely disbelieved it, but Rocks himself offered no further explanation, just grinning and chuckling to himself. He hadn't actually expected that his deceptive teaching method would actually teach the kid something. Back to York and Gloriosa's battle. The commotion behind them did not affect York's state. After he repelled Gloriosa with one sword strike, he didn't have time to follow up with a second before her long leg kicked back directly. York raised his sword, using armament Haki emission to block, but because Gloriosa was only wearing a sarong around her waist, her long leg thrusting forward slightly distracted him, causing him to fail to block successfully. Oh my, boy-chan, you're a big boy for your age. Gloriosa stood on one leg, the other slightly bent, showcasing her perfectly proportioned figure. York slowly got up from the ground, dusting himself off. I didn't expect the Amazon Lily's leg techniques to win in this way. After all, beauty is our natural weapon. Gloriosa tucked a strand of long hair behind her ear. Not using a sword when you have one is a very foolish act. Indeed. York sheathed his long sword and casually tossed it aside. Against an opponent of your caliber, half-baked swordsmanship won't win. He clenched his fists, his knuckles cracking softly, and York's entire body began to emit a soft white glow. Watch out. I'm getting serious now. As he spoke, a high heel instantly appeared 10 centimeters from York's eyes. In the nick of time, York ducked to avoid the kick and punched towards Gloriosa's waist and abdomen. Gloriosa, using her flexible waist, twisted to dodge York's counter-punch, then smoothly rotated her body into a wide leg sweep, kicking towards the back of York's head. York turned again, crossing his arms to block the kick. Bang! A powerful gust of wind erupted, causing the clothes of the people behind York to flutter. York rolled his eyes, glancing at Gloriosa's calf where it made contact with his arm. There was no armament Haki wrapped around it. Charlotte Linlin, watching the fight, bared her teeth in a mischievous grin. Gloriosa got careless, she's going to lose. Hearing this, Gloriosa instantly retracted her leg, and York immediately raised his hand to unleash Holy Light tentacles. The Holy Light tentacles grazed Gloriosa's calf, failing to successfully entangle its target. Gloriosa, who had created distance immediately, blushed slightly, clearly still somewhat affected. What a nasty little brother you are, your devil fruit ability is just too wicked. The one who should be surprised is actually me. York slowly straightened his body, a hunter's desire for prey in his eyes. I didn't expect the dignified empress to be a young bird who hasn't tasted meat. Gloriosa's face showed a hint of pride. Just those dirty men. They are not worthy of my favor. What's more, I already have someone in my heart. As she said this, Gloriosa's eyes instantly turned into hearts, like a girl in the throes of first love. I came to this island precisely to find him. The Rock's pirate crew, hearing this, immediately started asking each other questions. To win the pirate empress's heart, not bad. Which kid is it? Tell us quickly. Gahahaha. Don't worry, I won't fight you for him. My target is Shaki-chan. Although the pirate empress is good, I also prefer Shaki-chan. The pirates questioned and teased each other, but none of them admitted to having any relationship with Gloriosa. Gloriosa's forehead tensed with bulging veins. I would never like dirty, evil guys like you. The man I like is Roger. Gall D. Roger. As soon as these words were spoken, the Rock's pirate crew instantly lost interest. Oh, it's that fool. What's so good about that fool Roger? It'd be better to choose one of us. Cough. Pooh. The attitude of the Rock's pirate crew members put Gloriosa at ease. Rox, in particular, spat on the spot. However, York, her opponent at this moment, was completely different. The light in his eyes was even more intense than before, and he even licked his lips like a pervert. The current pirate empress, her favorite man is Roger. Gloriosa turned to look at York, a teasing smile on her face. What? Could it be that boy Chan also likes Big Sister? But it's a pity, Big Sister is already taken. York grinned. It doesn't matter. The essence of pirates is plunder. I just need to take you. As for Roger, I'm really looking forward to his expression when he finds out you've become my woman. Gloriosa's expression became serious, and she once again took the initiative to attack. Her slender and graceful body spun like a windmill, making it impossible to tell where her long legs would kick from. Perfume femur. Flurry kick. York did not use armament hockey for defense, but directly met Gloriosa's whirlwind kicks with his fists. Bang 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 bang. Fists collided with high heel soles, and the two fought to a draw. You've got some moves, boy Chan. Pulling away, Gloriosa once again maintained her one-legged stance. York smiled faintly and dropped his fighting stance. No. You've already lost. Talking big is. Snap. York snapped his fingers, and Gloriosa instantly went weak in the knees and fell to the ground. Her cheeks, which had been a healthy rosy color a second ago, instantly turned crimson, and even her entire skin surface took on a blush. She struggled to stand up, but her legs were powerless, and the intense pleasure was still madly stimulating all her body nerves and brain nerves. Ha! With a sharp shout, armament hockey burst forth, dispelling the ability York had imposed on her. The pleasure that seemed to constantly assault her brain finally dissipated. However, the physical weakness was not something that could be relieved in a short time. Whoa ah ha 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 ha. You lost. Rox laughed as he made his judgment. No. I haven't. I can still fight. Gloriosa was unwilling, she still wanted to fight. But York had already walked up to her. He put one arm around her back and adjusted her legs, passing his other arm through her knees, lifting her up in a bridal carry. The devil fruit ability she had just dispelled attacked again. Well, although you lost, your strength is good, from now on you are also a member of my Rox pirate crew. Rox added another sentence, declaring that Gloriosa's strength was, after all, up to par. Gloriosa struggled to stay conscious under York's ability. Put me down. Rox said, you can't attack comrades. York said nothing, just continued to smile at Rox. Rox replied cruelly, my rules take effect after you become an official comrade. However, if you become York's trophy before that, I can't control him. I believe the other comrades must think the same way, right? Hey. The pirates of the Rox pirate crew let out strange laughs. That's right. Blame yourself for being careless. You knew York's ability, yet you still didn't constantly use armament hockey for defense, who can you blame? Speaking of which, what kind of expression will Roger have when he finds out you've become York's woman? He, how exciting. The strange laughs of the pirates plunged Gloriosa into complete despair. I shouldn't have come to Hashinosu Island. But now it's too late for anything you say. York carried Gloriosa and walked past the crowd. I'm going to enjoy my trophy for the next few days. Rocks, don't deliberately cause trouble. Otherwise, I'll definitely find an opportunity to kill you. Whoa-ah-ha-ha-ha-ha. I wouldn't do such a thing. But if Roger comes to trouble you, I won't intervene, you know. Heh heh. Let him come. I want to see just how strong the legendary Roger really is. The night passed without a word, and the second day was still silent. The third day, early morning. York walked out of the bathroom, satisfied. He looked at the woman lying on his bed, exhausted and fast asleep, with tear stains on her cheeks, but also a satisfied smile at the corners of her lips. After 18 years of crossing into the pirate world, he finally got his first woman. He had originally thought this woman would be Miss Buckingham, but by a twist of fate, it turned out to be Gloriosa. Well, all in all, this outcome wasn't bad. Walking slowly forward, gently stroking the woman's cheek, wiping away the tear stains, York put on his clothes, opened the door, and walked out. However, as soon as he opened the door, York's footsteps paused at the entrance. He turned his head to look down a corridor, where a blonde woman was looking at him with some surprise. Yo, York, how did you come out? York looked at the unnatural blush on the woman's face and her slightly flustered tone, then closed the door behind him and slowly walked up to her. What? Have you decided to give up Newgate and want to come to my side? No, how could that be? Stussy used armament hockey to wrap her arm, shaking off York's hand that was trying to embrace her, and turned to run away. I would never like you. Meeting Stussy, who was eavesdropping in the corridor, was just a minor interlude. After York left the room, he first grabbed some food to fill his stomach, then personally prepared a nutritious breakfast. Meat, eggs, milk, and vegetables, all four essential elements were present, and it was prepared in a Chinese style, perfect in color, aroma, and taste. As he stepped out of the kitchen, the fragrant aroma of the dishes immediately attracted Whitebeard and Golden Lion, who were loitering around. It smells so good. York, I didn't expect you to have such culinary skills. Seeing the two men's covetous expressions, York walked directly between them. Get out of the way. This is specially prepared for my woman. If you want to eat, go lick the pot, I haven't washed it yet. You brat. That's going too far. York snorted. I'm not your chef. Returning to the room, Gloriosa had already woken up. She was sitting propped against the headboard, her eyes somewhat vacant. York entered the room, carrying the fragrant dishes, and seeing her lack of reaction, his eyes instantly turned a sacred white. HMMP. Gloriosa let out a muffled groan, her pretty face instantly flushed, glaring at York with shame and anger. Don't glare at me with those eyes. Come eat. The sacred white light in York's eyes faded, and Gloriosa also returned to normal. She casually threw off the blanket, and a faint, sacred white magic pattern could be vaguely seen disappearing from her lower abdomen. As she left the bed, a patch of dried dark red could also be seen on the sheets. HMMP. Her slender legs went weak, and Gloriosa, who had just gotten out of bed, almost lost her balance. A strong arm reached out from the side to encircle her waist, helping her to steady herself. Let go of me. Gloriosa struggled to push York away, but her arms were powerless, so she could only let the young man help her to a chair in the room. Looking at the lavish dishes in front of her, Gloriosa didn't act coy and immediately picked up her chopsticks to eat. As the food, perfect in color, aroma, and taste, entered her mouth, her beautiful eyes flickered momentarily, but she said nothing, simply devouring all the food. After the meal, as York cleared the dishes, Gloriosa suddenly spoke, even if you have my body, I can't possibly love you. My heart belongs to Roger. I don't care. York replied calmly. What I value is just your body, and I will have many women in the future. It's impossible for every one of them to deeply love me 100%. Of course, this was false. York's possessiveness was very strong. Otherwise, the devil fruit he obtained by twisting reality with his will would not have been the joy fruit. An animal type, mythical zone, should be the devil fruit that most time traveler generally desire. The reason he said this was merely to subtly influence her. Women are emotional creatures. Sweet talk most easily touches their feelings. Women are also creatures who admire strength. Their instincts will naturally draw them towards the strong. Women are even more creatures controlled by their physical instincts. As long as their bodies are conquered, their minds and emotions being conquered will only be a matter of time. By stating now that he doesn't care who Gloriosa truly loves, he is letting her know that York cannot be manipulated by her emotions. At the same time, by conquering her physically and with his devil fruit ability, he makes her realize that York is a strong man she cannot resist, forcing her to choose either submission or escape. Finally, by fulfilling the responsibilities of a qualified husband, combined with some sweet talk, he subtly touches her emotions. With this three-pronged approach, it's only a matter of time before Gloriosa is completely conquered, body and soul. Of course, there are certainly women who, under this triple assault, still refuse to give their hearts, but those are most likely married women, or lovers who deeply love each other. Only when two people deeply loved each other and were forcibly separated will they remain unforgettable. Individuals like Gloriosa, who are most likely experiencing unrequited love, do not possess such deep-seated obsessions. After all, if she wasn't experiencing unrequited love, Ace's birth mother should have been her. And unfortunately, York has a tiny bit of a cleanliness fetish. He is not interested in women who have been with other men, no matter how beautiful or alluring they are. Therefore, he is unlikely to encounter those chaste and resolute women whose stories are sung. Back to the main topic. After Gloriosa rested for a day and her body fully recovered, Rox officially held a welcome banquet for her. After the banquet, Rox finally issued his first operational order in half a year. Plunder the Saxon kingdom. The reason was simple. This country was very rich. It was one of the wealthiest nations in the New World seas. They hadn't attacked this country before because its military was strong, and attacking them would come at a cost. But a few months ago, the old king died, and a new king ascended the throne. This new king was a pacifist who had been completely fooled. He disbanded the national army, expelled the strong individuals from the kingdom, and even imprisoned and beheaded some of them, or sold them to the world government. Rox seized this opportunity, intending to give this new king of the Saxon kingdom a taste of pirate brutality. Set sail. Those without guts can just stay cooped up on the island. Awoo. The Rox pirates set sail, with the main ship at the forefront, followed by a large fleet. This time, they were attacking a kingdom, so relying solely on the dozen or so core members of the Rox pirates certainly wouldn't be enough. It wasn't that they couldn't conquer it, but they wouldn't be able to carry much loot. Though Rox's ship was large, its capacity was limited. Bringing along the subordinates served two purposes: helping to deal with miscellaneous soldiers and allowing them to carry more treasure after the victory. 10 days later, the Rox pirates arrived at the target island. Fire the cannons. Rox swung his long saber, and the ship cannons roared. York leapt first, stepping on cannonballs, crossing more than 10 nautical miles to land directly on the island. Boom. Drawing his sword, his cannon strike swordsmanship blasted the army guarding the port, sending them sprawling. You are brave warriors who defend your homeland. You should die by sword and blade. York did not activate his devil fruit ability, instead wielding his sword and rushing into the crowd, slashing left and right, causing chaos. The intelligence gathered by Wang Ji was very accurate. The strong individuals of this country had indeed disappeared. With his half-baked swordsmanship, York directly cut through the entire military formation from the vanguard, encountering almost no worthy opponents. Occasionally, some individuals would use armament hockey, but it was only a basic application, merely hardening and coating their fists, feet, or weapons, making them no match for York. Yahahaha. For the sake of treasure, all of you die. While York was fighting in the military formation, Golden Lion, Whitebeard, and others also successively landed on the island. To thoroughly plunder this country, they all restrained their respective devil fruit abilities, causing only localized destruction, but they uniformly carried out large-scale slaughter. From the port town, they slaughtered their way to the center of the island. The army, weakened by the Saxon kingdom's new policies, was utterly incapable of stopping the Rox pirates. And as the killing and advance continued, York witnessed another side of this country. The Saxon kingdom, hailed as one of the wealthiest kingdoms in the New World and once among the top ranked in military power. The port town where York first landed perfectly fit this description. Not only was it heavily garrisoned, but the decorations of every single household were exceptionally exquisite and luxurious. The miscellaneous pirates under the Rock's pirate crew were still plundering that port town. However, as he ventured inland, he saw a large number of starving serfs. Every single one of them was either emaciated with a protruding belly or completely swollen. The former was due to extreme hunger causing them to eat too much dirt, and the latter was also due to extreme hunger causing their bodies to swell. Even so, they still had to drag their dying bodies to work in the fields. Yet, despite the fields being full of lush green wheat seedlings, York still witnessed two starving people exchanging their already starved to death children. Ye she eating one's child in times of famine. York had indeed seen these words many times in history books in his previous life, but this was the first time he had truly witnessed it firsthand. So York stormed into the nearest noble manor. No, to be precise, it wasn't a manor, but a castle. A typical Western-style ancient castle, just not as grand and magnificent as those famous tourist attractions from York's previous life. On the castle walls, a group of well-rested soldiers stood guard, and a middle-aged man in luxurious attire stood on the battlements, in charge of commanding or supervising. Pirate! You won't take this place. Retreat! The elegantly dressed middle-aged noble's words weren't unpleasant, merely telling York to leave. Seeing this, York temporarily suppressed his inner anger and asked, "Are all these fields outside the castle yours?" The middle-aged noble's expression didn't change as he sternly shouted at York, "That's none of your business. Get lost. Pirate." York frowned slightly, then a smile appeared on his face. He sheathed his blood-stained long saber, clasped his hands together, and began to emit holy light all over his body, like a Buddha. Sin of hunger. Countless people have died of hunger on your land, so I shall bestow upon you the joy of satiety. Holy light shone below the city, and everyone observing from the city wall couldn't escape it. Their bodies collectively trembled, and then smiles of happiness simultaneously appeared on their faces. My stomach is so full. I can't walk. Boom. York raised his hand, using externally released armament hockey to destroy the castle gate. Then, radiating holy light, he walked a full circle inside the castle, including every corner, finding all the hidden people and bestowing upon them the joy of being full. When York left the castle, a team of pirates finally arrived from the port town. York deactivated his ability in advance and met them. The people in the castle have lost their ability to resist. Don't harm them, just take all the wealth. Of course, if you're interested in the noblewomen inside, playing around is fine too. With that, York left directly and headed for the next noble castle. The pirates glanced at York's departing back, no longer hesitated, and quickly rushed into the castle. Kill. With a swing of their sabers, several guards were immediately cut down, but soon someone noticed that after these people were killed, their faces showed the despair and terror they should have had before death. And apart from those they killed, everyone else's faces wore a satisfied smile. They recognized this smile, and it was very familiar. York sought guidance from rocks almost every half-month, and they were also illuminated by the holy light of joy almost every half-month. At that time, the expressions on the faces of countless comrades were exactly like this. However, at that time, they were completely immersed in joy and didn't feel anything was wrong. But now, as bystanders, they suddenly felt it was a bit creepy. The feeling of being full, it's wonderful. The middle-aged noble in luxurious attire appeared before the pirates. The pirates held their sabers, their faces wary, but the middle-aged noble let out a burp. No. Don't steal my treasures. Burp Company. Come here. Kill all these pirates for me. No. We can't, my lord. Our stomachs are too full, we can't move. Let us digest first. The guard's reactions infuriated the noble lord, but he himself had little mobility due to his overly full stomach. Seeing their slow movements, the pirates' expressions gradually changed from fear to a sneer. With a swing of his saber, he casually cut down the noble lord, then rushed into the castle to loot everything. During this time, there were many screams from the noblewomen, but this had nothing to do with York anymore. Several days later, the plundering of the Saxon kingdom was complete. This country truly had no strong individuals left. Occasionally, some people who could be called experts appeared, but they generally couldn't withstand a single blow from Golden Lion, Whitebeard, and others. The Rock's pirate crew, including Rock's own ship, all 28 pirate ships were filled with valuable goods and sailed away brazenly before the marine arrived. On the island, a large group of commoners watched the Rock's pirate crew's receding figures with deep resentment in their eyes. They didn't hate the Rock's pirate crew for stealing the island's wealth, but rather, why didn't they kill all the nobles? When Sengoku, leading the marine, finally arrived at the island, the entire island seemed to have returned to its original state. A large number of commoners were exploited, and the nobles lived in luxury. It was just that Sengoku, who was leading this mission, eventually discovered an anomaly. When the surviving king entertained them, although he provided all sorts of delicacies and fine wines, not only he himself but also the other nobles accompanying him didn't eat a single bite. Your Majesty, my lords, with so much delicious food, why aren't any of you eating? Because we're not hungry. The king and the nobles replied with smiles. But Sengoku looked at their faces, they were clearly so hungry they were almost unrecognizable. Why aren't you hungry? Your Majesty, when was the last time you ate? A hint of seriousness appeared on Sengoku's face. He suspected that the king and the nobles had been affected by a devil fruit ability. Last time I ate. It must have been 3 days ago. The king replied uncertainly, since the Rock's pirates' attack, we have not felt hunger again. You might find it absurd to hear, but this king believes this might be a blessing from God. Because we no longer pursue military force, and instead use peace and dialogue as the only bridge to resolve conflicts, our good intentions successfully move the gods, and thus the gods bestowed upon us the blessing of not being troubled by hunger. Sengoku did not have the ability to remove the powers of the Saxon kingdom's nobles. Powerful armament hockey could only dispel abilities cast upon oneself, but not those cast upon others. Similarly, Sengoku did not send anyone to douse these nobles with seawater. It wasn't that he couldn't think of it, but that he didn't want to do it. On one hand, like York before him, he had witnessed the suffering of the common people in this country upon arriving on the island. Although he was a loyal dog of the world government, a trace of conscience still existed within him. On the other hand, the king and the nobles, afflicted by the ability, still maintained their lucidity. If he were to use seawater to break their current state, would they be grateful to him, or would they resent him? Sengoku was not like Garp, who had no ambition for his position whatsoever. He wanted to become an admiral, and even a fleet admiral, and then achieve his ambitions through that. To achieve this goal, he could not offend the nobles of various countries, at least not the royal families of various countries. Thus, under Sengoku's indifference, the king and the nobles of the Saxon kingdom, in their blissful satiety, reached their physiological limit. At this moment, the ability York had cast upon them dissipated, and the true sensation of hunger returned, transforming the happy smiles that had always been on the nobles' faces into ugly and ferocious wails. So hungry, hungry. They desperately wanted food, but their bodies, having reached their limit, prevented them from even crawling. Finally, all of them experienced the feelings of the starving common people and, at the same time, starved to death on their way to the granary or kitchen. Days later, fresh newspapers were released. The Saxon kingdom completely collapsed due to an attack by the Rock's pirates. York's bounty also soared directly to 770 million berries as a result. 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. The time arrived 40 years before Luffy set sail, which was the year 1480 of the sea calendar. A major piece of news occurred this year. Harold, the king of the giant race country Elbaf, who had consistently declared his intention to join the world government, suddenly dropped his pretense and inexplicably sank an innocent warship. Newspapers heavily publicized this event, insisting that Harold's alliance with the world government was a sham. After reading the newspaper, Rox waved his hand. Guys. To Elbaf. The journey to Elbaf is omitted. Elbaf. The lowest level of the treasure tree atom. The underworld, Ida's tavern. Rox, pirate cruise ship docked on the shore next to the tavern, and Harold, the king of the giant race country, who had received news in advance, personally came to greet him. This was a man at least 40 meters tall, with a burly physique and strong muscles. He wore a fish-scale armor vest on his upper body, a black cape on his shoulders, and a pair of large, black curved horns on his forehead. York had seen Harold's photo in the newspaper before. He was originally a man with thick black hair, but for some reason, he was now completely bald. Rox, however, was not surprised. Upon seeing Harold, he immediately greeted him. Long time no see, Harold. Let's go. Let's go to the castle for a drink. However, Harold did not give Rox a good look. Don't be foolish, I will never let a person as unprincipled as you enter the country. After an exchange of pleasantries that wasn't particularly harmonious, Harold welcomed the entire Rox pirates into the tavern run by his concubine. Harold's concubine was named Ida, an ordinary-looking giant race woman. She and Rox were old acquaintances who had met many times. Seeing Harold bring Rox and his group in, she quickly prepared food and drinks for them. York, Whitebeard, and the others sat down at a table in the tavern, enjoying Elbaf's unique giant fruits, delicious food, and fine wine. Rox, meanwhile, sat directly at the bar counter, drinking with Harold. The two first chatted about the truth behind Harold's attack on the world government's ship. It was a marine warship that the world government had attacked a non-affiliated country. Because this non-affiliated country had once helped Elbaf, Harold went to stop it. As a result, this warship openly threatened Harold with Elbaf joining the world government and publicly declared that people from non-affiliated countries were not human. Thus, an enraged Harold directly sank the warship. Finally, the world government placed all the blame on Harold in the newspapers. Wahahaha. I knew the world government was like this. Rox burst into laughter, but after he finished laughing, his expression became serious. Let the whole country join us, Harold. I can't stand you kowtowing to the world government anymore. However, Harold rejected Rox with a firm attitude. One day, I will make Elbaf join the world government. Then, he pointed to his bald head. This is the sincerity I show to the world government. Shaving your head to show sincerity. What kind of culture is that? Wahahaha. Harold couldn't help but feel a bit dejected at his words. Garp also laughed at me. Not just Rox, but the other members of the Rox pirates also burst into laughter. Only York didn't laugh. Because only he knew the proverb, your body, hair, and skin are received from your parents, you dare not damage them. Similarly, only he could understand how heavy the sincerity represented by Harold shaving off all his hair was. After laughing at Harold, Rox once again became serious. Why don't you just be a pirate crew? Most large organizations have scoundrels, but the Marine is ultimately an excellent army that helps people every day. Harold still insisted on his point of view. Elbaf, starting with John Giant, has also produced several Marine soldiers. If more of our country's exceptionally strong warriors could join the Marine, it would help even more people. That's incredible. Rox first praised him, then turned his head to look at Ida, who was busy behind the bar. Ida, help me persuade Harold, the world government really isn't a good thing. However, Harold's current state was precisely Ida's doing. She gave Rox a mischievous smile in response to his request. Indeed, if Harold were my child, I would definitely tell him this, be careful who you befriend. Hey! Stop joking around. Rox angrily slammed his wine glass onto the bar counter, turning his head left and right, finally locking his gaze on York. Hey! York! You're different from the others. You help me persuade Harold. York. Harold heard the name, and following Rox's gaze, he also locked onto York, who was enjoying his meal. As one of the most notorious members of the entire Rox pirate crew, Harold's apprehension towards York far exceeded that for Rox himself. After all, York's ability was simply too dangerous. Any man with a wife, girlfriend, or daughter would not dare to underestimate or ignore his existence. York, who was enjoying his meal, was stunned. He hadn't expected Rox and Harold's casual chat to suddenly involve him. You want me to persuade Harold? Harold and I aren't close, so how am I supposed to persuade him? York had no desire to join the conversation. Harold had already shaved his head as a declaration of his resolve. Unless his head was chopped off, it would be impossible to sway his will. Oh, the Koto Amatsukami from the Naruto world might work, but that's another matter. You fool brat. Rox cursed, but he didn't give up. Let me rephrase the question. If you were Harold, what would be the most correct thing for you to do right now? PFF'd. York bit into a super large grape over 1.5 meters in diameter, completely ignoring Rox. Rox, annoyed, was about to stand up and draw his sword, ready to vent all the frustration he felt from Harold onto York. Just then, Harold raised a hand to stop Rox. "Don't do it, Rox, this is Ida's bar. If you destroy this place, I won't welcome you anymore." Rox huffed unhappily, then sat back down and picked up a wooden tankard to drink his frustrations away. After appeasing Rox, Harold looked at York again. "York, right. Your youth is beyond my imagination, but since Rox is asking for your opinion, you must have your own unique insights. Would you be willing to honor me by sharing your insights?" York swallowed the entire grape and looked at Harold. "Your attitude, indeed, resembles that of a wise king. Very well, since you've asked so sincerely, then I shall generously answer you." York paused briefly, organizing his thoughts. "If I were you right now, first and foremost, I would not actively seek to join the world government. Things given for free are worthless. I won't give specific examples. As a king of a nation, you surely understand the meaning of this statement. Secondly, I also wouldn't join the Rox pirate crew. The reason is what you're thinking right now. Joining the Rox pirate crew would completely sever the possibility of Elbaf joining the world government, so it cannot be done. Then, thirdly, militarily conquer those nations that have previously helped Elbaf. Not to go to those countries and kill people, but to declare to the entire world that these nations are now Elbaf's territory. Whoever dares to invade them is declaring war on Elbaf. Fourthly, attack any entity that dares to attack a protected nation of Elbaf, including world government ships and the marine. As long as they dare to attack a nation protected by Elbaf, kill them all. Leave no one behind. Then chop off their heads, pickle them, and send them back to the world government or the marine. Fifthly, crush the world government's Buster Call head on. Tell the entire world, with facts, that the Buster Call is useless in front of Elbaf. Finally, the world government itself will send people to request Elbaf to join the world government. At that time, as you said, the giant race warriors who want to help others can honorably join the marine and carry out the justice they believe in. Last but not least, always be prepared for war. Ensure that Elbaf's military strength can suppress the world government's ambition to destroy Elbaf. As long as you do all of the above, joining the world government and helping those kind citizens will be a matter of a single word from you." After these words were spoken, the entire Ida's bar fell into a long silence. Harold and Ida looked stunned, everyone in the Rox pirate crew stopped eating, and even Rox himself stared at York with a look of utter surprise. "York, you little. That's my suggestion. Whether King Harold listens or not is his own decision." York ignored their reactions, turned around, grabbed a steak several meters in size, and took a bite. Whoosh! Rox suddenly flashed from the bar counter and leapt onto the table where York was sitting cross-legged. He reached out and grabbed York's shoulder, forcibly turning him around. "Brat, I didn't expect you to have such wisdom. Since you've already given Harold advice, I assume you've also thought about my plan to conquer the world for a long time. Tell me, what's your advice for me?" York gulped, swallowing the beef in his mouth. He looked at Rox's intense gaze, originally wanting to say, "Why should I tell you?" But after thinking about the past 2 years, Rox had indeed taught him many things, even if it often seemed perfunctory, he had indeed learned a lot. So, he put down the steak he had just picked up and asked Rox in return, "You really want to know? Whether I execute it or not is my business. But right now, I want to hear your opinion." York paused briefly, also organizing his thoughts. Because of his previous pause when answering Harold, Rox was patient enough to wait. A moment later, York spoke. "For you, it's actually very simple. Establish a sufficiently vast nation, rule a sufficiently large population, and then build an army that is loyal to you and strong enough. Go head to head, break through the Marines' defenses from the front, storm Mary Geoise, kill all the celestial dragons living there, and you will naturally become the king of the world." After speaking, York closed his mouth, waiting for Rox's reaction. The latter was momentarily stunned, then burst out laughing. "Wahahaha. You're still just a kid after all. Your ideas are too naive. Are you saying that I don't know the secret of the flowers in Holy Land Mary Geoise, and the plan I provided has no feasibility?" York suddenly interjected a sentence amidst Rox's laughter, and the latter's laughter abruptly stopped. Rox stared intently at York. "How do you know?" York smiled calmly. A secret is only a secret when only one person knows it. When a second person knows it, it's no longer a secret. Rox remained silent, still staring intently at York. York was not flustered at all, and continued to answer calmly. On the foundation of establishing national rule, secretly search for a way to break that secret. With both lines progressing simultaneously, you can naturally achieve your goal of ruling the world. These two are indispensable. If you don't believe it, we can make an assumption. Suppose you accomplished your goal according to your original plan and became the king of the world. Very well then, as the king of the world, you issue an order. Who will ultimately execute it? You wouldn't think that after you eliminate the celestial dragons, the current world government officials and the Marine would voluntarily pledge allegiance to you, would you? Even if they did pledge allegiance to you, would you absolutely trust them? If you don't need others to serve you, and you don't need others to execute your orders, then does it make a difference whether you become the king of the world or not? York's face showed a sneer. A king of the world whose words aren't heard beyond a single island is a bird's king of the world. York's words plunged the entire Rox pirate crew into deep thought. Many people had pensive expressions, and Golden Lion directly asked, "Hey, York. What is this secret of Holy Land Mary Geoise you're talking about?" York smiled without speaking, and Rox also released his grip on York's shoulder, allowing York to continue enjoying his meal. Nothing, it's not time to tell you that secret yet. Rox turned and jumped, returning to the bar to drink with Harold. Hey, Harold, you heard York's suggestion clearly, didn't you? Even if you don't want to join us, you shouldn't lick the world government like a dog. Elbaf has its own glory. And you are now abandoning that glory. Harold, like York, remained silent. However, seeing his pensive gaze, he likely took some of York's words to heart. But taking them to heart is one thing, what he actually does is not something York and Rox can forcibly control. Behind the bar in the tavern, a child wearing a helmet, with horns and blindfolded eyes, also fell into contemplation at this moment. His name was Loki, Harold's second son, and like Harold, he was a legitimate son with the pure bloodline of the ancient giant race. This specially arranged meeting ultimately concluded with a not-so-pleasant conversation. Rox led his crew, arriving with high hopes and leaving disappointed. Aside from enjoying a meal unique to Elbaf, they gained almost nothing. Hashinosu Island. Half a month had passed since their return from Elbaf, and Rox had yet to issue any new orders for action. With the arrival of the pirate crew specializing in selling newspapers, the day's big news also reached Hashinosu Island. Guys! New news! The pirate responsible for selling newspapers shouted loudly, tears streaming down his face. Shaki of the Kuja pirate crew. She has resigned from her position as pirate empress. This means we will never encounter her at sea again. What did you say? The pirates of Hashinosu Island were shocked and immediately pulled out money to buy newspapers. After reading the report in the newspaper, countless people collapsed to their knees, crying in despair. Our youth is over. Shaki. We'll never see you again. Skull Mountain in the center of the island. The members of the Rox pirate crew also quickly received the relevant newspapers. Gloriosa sat on York's lap, leaning in his arms, as he unfolded a newspaper, and they both read its contents. What is Shaki thinking? Isn't she just chasing a man, like you, Gloriosa? It seems even Amazon Lily will fall to romance. Charlotte Linlin sat on a nearby sofa, with the Katakuri triplets, who could now run around freely, by her side. You, who pop out children like popcorn, wouldn't understand the troubles of love. It's hard to believe that child would be troubled by love. If the object is Roger, I will never forgive her. Are you still thinking about Roger? Charlotte Linlin was somewhat surprised. She looked at York, who was embracing Gloriosa, and said with a mischievous smile, York, you must teach her a good lesson tonight. York gently patted Gloriosa's perky behind. She let out a soft hum, wrapped her arms around York's neck, and pecked him on the cheek. Both my body and heart are now completely York's. I stopped caring about that scoundrel Roger a long time ago. It's just that as someone who's been through it, I really don't want my former good sister to repeat my mistakes. Charlotte Linlin pouted. She finally understood that Gloriosa brought up Roger purely to tease York, it was their special game. This woman had indeed completely become York's. On the other side, Stussy sighed softly as she watched the affectionate York and Gloriosa. Everyone is talking about Shaki, Shaki. She turned to Whitebeard. You are devoted to me, Newgate. I've never gotten used to you. However, he remained as unaffected by her as he had been 2 years ago. They say that when a woman chases a man, it's like a thin veil, but for her, it felt like mountains and rivers separated them. Stussy looked at Whitebeard with complex emotions, and once again feigned annoyance. I am Miss Buckingham Stussy, with many admirers, Newgate. Well, there you go. You have many admirers anyway, so it doesn't matter if you don't have me. No. I only want you. Whitebeard did not respond, and Stussy's gaze gradually became downcast. She turned her head again to look at York, who had hardly bothered her since Gloriosa's arrival. Her beautiful eyes flickered slightly, wondering what she was thinking. Charlotte Linlin sat on the side, watching the show, a subtle curve forming at the corner of her mouth. Stussy, this fellow, is also about to fall. Event. Big event. Kuja's ship. It's at the shore. Only 3 days had passed since the news of Pirate Empress Shaki's retirement. Hashinosu Island, which had been utterly silent, suddenly became excited again. As the Kuja pirate cruise ship docked at the pier, a peerless beauty descended from the ship, and countless pirates immediately knelt along the sides of the road. An angel has descended. Now I can die in peace. What brings you here? I can't believe you would come to such a dirty island. You shouldn't go deeper into the island. The eyes of countless pirates turned completely heart-shaped. They stuck out their tongues, drooling. I can't look at her. Her radiance makes my eyes water. Is this real? Or am I dreaming? Could it be that she's here to join the Rock's pirate crew? Like Lady Gloriosa. Facing the multitude of fawning pirates kneeling on the ground, Shaki did not show an arrogant demeanor, but simply said beautifully, I want to live here for a while. What? The pirates were greatly alarmed, feeling their hearts might leap out of their chests. I am a pirate. No matter what I do, the marine will always pursue me. I will hide, but you. Shaki paused briefly, then gave a smile to the many pirates. Will you protect me? The pirates of Hashinosu Island went completely wild. The air of the entire island seemed to turn into countless heart-shaped bubbles under their emitted hormones. We will protect you. Excited roars echoed through the sky. Shaki. This place smells musty. We will clean it for you. Shaki. I want to open a shop. We will build it immediately. Hey. What's going on? These idiots are making such a racket. The commotion of the pirates finally caught Rock's attention. To prevent anyone from challenging him, Rox gathered everyone and rushed towards the center of the chaos. Everyone of the Rock's pirate crew. This is bad. No matter what, please don't be angry. Mr. Rox, it was us who acted on our own accord. No matter what, please let that person stay on the island. As Rox and his group arrived, the pirates automatically cleared a path, revealing the building they had kept hidden behind them, a structure built within a single day. Shaki's Rip-Off Bar. A sign with these words hung above the entrance of the building, and Rox was slightly stunned after seeing it. What is this? Click. The bar's shutter door opened, and out walked an exquisitely beautiful woman wearing a mini dress with an apron over it, her hands combing her hair back. She smiled gently at Rox and his group, who were directly opposite the door. How delightful. Welcome. The very first customers, would you like something to drink? An angel awe. In an instant, not just the pirates who had been surrounding the bar, but the entire Rock's pirate crew, with the exception of York, including Whitebeard, all male members felt their hearts turn into a single heart shape and leap out of their chests. York stood in the crowd, looking at Shaki, dressed as a barmaid. Although he was equally moved, his expression was relatively calm, he just couldn't help but greedily lick his lips. After all, in his previous life, he had seen all kinds of beauties online, real people, 2D, 3D, and even various abstract beauties, which had long raised his aesthetic threshold. Moreover, Gloriosa, whose beauty was only slightly less than Shaki's, was now at his disposal for various poses, so his body's resistance had also been trained. However, Shaki was, after all, the world's most beautiful woman by nature. Compared to Hancock, whose world's most beautiful title relied somewhat on her devil fruit ability, Shaki was indeed more deserving of the title. Yet, just then, a sharp pain shot through the soft flesh at York's waist. He averted his gaze from Shaki and turned his head to his side. Gloriosa was pouting angrily, her fingers tightly pinching the soft flesh of his waist. York smiled wryly, pulled her into his arms, and gently kissed her forehead. Then he leaned into her ear and whispered, "I'm very greedy. Not only will I keep an eye on what's in the pot, but I won't easily let go of what's already in the bowl either." Gloriosa let out a soft HMPH, released her hand, and stopped sulking. She had actually been mentally prepared for something like this today. With York's devil fruit ability, it was impossible for him to have only one woman. York had also explicitly told her this. The reason she was still acting like this now was nothing more than jealousy, coupled with a desire to occupy a greater place in York's heart. At Shaki's invitation, Rox became the first customer of Shaki's Rip-Off Bar. What a fragrant smell, this bar. Rox, the strongest pirate whose name struck fear across the world, was at this moment almost no different from any other ordinary man. He looked around the bar, peering left and right, surprised, delighted, and infatuated, wishing he could lick the entire bar clean. York followed the others into the bar after Rox, and seeing Rox's behavior, he frowned slightly. Rox, get a grip. Don't make yourself look like a mere grunt. However, Rox simply pretended not to hear. I can't open it. Shaki, who had already walked behind the bar, took out a bottle of liquor, intending to open it, but then feigned weakness, pretending she couldn't. Upon seeing this, John was the first to rush over before everyone else. I'll help you. Wait a minute. I can too. For a moment, the entire bar was in chaos. To help Shaki open a bottle of liquor, the group almost came to blows. Can you please not fight? This bar was so hard to build. Shaki smiled and persuaded them. Golden Lion, John, Wang Ji, and others instantly stood at attention, putting their arms around each other's shoulders. Absolutely no fighting. We are good friends. Hey. York, embracing Gloriosa, sat down on a sofa in the bar, watching this group being wrapped around Shaki's finger, and couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle. It's truly repressive, let me help you make your dreams come true. As he spoke, a sacred white light emanated from him, instantly filling the entire bar space. All the guys who were fawning over Shaki simultaneously let out a muffled groan, uncontrollably arching their backs. York, you fool. Angry roars like those of wild beasts erupted. These people truly wished they could tear York apart on the spot. Ha 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 ha. York laughed heartily, embracing Gloriosa. All of you, what are you pretending to be pure young men for here? If you like it, plunder it. We are pirates. Seriously pursuing a woman's heart, that's not what we should be doing. Rox suddenly let out an angry roar. He wouldn't be affected by York's ability, but at this moment, he glared at York with an exceptionally serious expression. I warn you. You are not to use your ability on Shaki. Unless Shaki truly likes you. York retracted his devil fruit ability and smiled at Rox. In other words, if I simply use legitimate means to win Shaki over, you won't attack me. Rox nodded slightly, then turned to the other pirate crew members in the bar and loudly declared. I declare. From now on, Shaki is the treasure of our Hashinosu Island. Each of us has the right to peacefully pursue Shaki. But ultimately, who Shaki falls in love with will be decided by her. Awoo. Agreed. I concur. Rox's declaration immediately won the unanimous approval of the entire pirate crew. Simply because all of them knew. If it came to unconventional means, they would never be able to compete with York and Rox. The former had devil fruit abilities, and the latter was simply too strong, no one could defeat him. York didn't join the others in the uproar. He narrowed his eyes slightly, because just now, he seemed to have heard a significant phrase. The treasure of Hashinosu Island. Could it be referring to Shaki? Before York's transmigration, the manga plot had just finished updating Egghead Island, so he wasn't very detailed in his understanding of the information from the Rox era. But at least one thing he knew. The fuse for the God Valley incident seemed to be that the celestial dragons sent people to steal the treasure of Hashinosu Island. Does this mean, in the future, Shaki might be kidnapped and stolen by people sent by the celestial dragons? The treasure of Hashinosu Island. Ever since York joined the Rox pirate crew, he had actually been secretly investigating. Because, according to the information he had gathered in his previous life, This treasure was very likely the top-tier devil fruit from the 6 treasure chests of the celestial dragons during the God Valley incident. Although York himself had already eaten the equally top-tier joy fruit, no one said he couldn't eat a second devil fruit. What's impossible by nature, can be achieved by scientific advancement. As long as Vegapunk is controlled before the world government, this theoretically possible future could very well be realized. However, York never expected that the legendary treasure of Hashinosu Island would turn out to be a woman. Although Shaki was indeed beautiful, considering her the island's most precious treasure was, in York's opinion, excessive. Countless historical experiences from his previous life taught him that one could like beautiful women, but not become obsessed with them, otherwise one would easily become a negative example in history textbooks. Of course, York would not make a final judgment on Rox just yet. Because although Shaki was just a woman, her influence on the entire pirate community was undeniable. Rox designating her as the treasure of Hashinosu Island could very well be a way to use her influence to unite the core members of pirate crews who didn't get along, as well as to attract and recruit other elite pirates wandering outside. Thinking from the perspective of a ruler or leader, Rox's idea was very likely this. Ultimately, however, it would still depend on what Rox did in the future. Whether he purely indulged in women, like a negative example from a textbook, or utilized Shaki's influence as York predicted, would determine York's final evaluation of Rox in his heart. After finishing a glass of whiskey opened by John and a fruit platter freshly cut by Golden Lion, York, without a trace of lingering, was the first to leave Shaki's rip-off bar. As the first to leave, his actions naturally attracted the attention of everyone in the bar. Golden Lion, John, Malone, and others looked indifferent, merely glancing before retracting their gazes, seeing it as a good opportunity with one less competitor. Whitebeard, Wang Ji, and Charlotte Linlin, on the other hand, showed expressions of realization, knowing that York was going to cultivate. As the person with the most bizarre abilities in the entire Rox pirate crew, York was also the most disciplined and diligent person in the entire Rox pirate crew. Every day, apart from playing with Gloriosa at night, the rest of the time, except for meal times, going out on missions, and when events occurred on the island, York basically spent his time cultivating. This also led to York's current strength, even without considering his devil fruit ability, already subtly approaching the first tier of the entire Rox pirate crew. Kaido looked left and right, quickly finished the food in front of him, and then followed York out. Although he also liked Shaki, his mind was relatively clearer than others. He knew that strength was the foundation of everything, and women were merely the icing on the cake. Watching York and Kaido leave one after another, Shaki, the bar owner, clearly had a flicker of surprise in her eyes. To be moved by her beauty yet able to completely control oneself, she had only seen it in Rayleigh so far. She hadn't expected that in the infamous Rox pirate crew, which theoretically should be full of perverts, there would be more such people than in the Roger pirates. Back to York. After leaving Shaki's rip-off bar, he went directly to the back of the Skull Mountain on Hashinosu Island. The Frozen Giant Research Institute, plundered from Punk Hazard, was located here. Later, in several encounters with the Marine, he seized several steel battleships from them, all of which were also placed here. York took off his shirt, revealing his muscular physique, and walked up to a warship whose bow was already somewhat dented. After completing a few sets of warm-up exercises to stretch his muscles and joints, Kaido happened to walk over at that moment. Yo! Kaido! Why are you here too? Not having a few more drinks with Shaki? If you're here, why can't I be here? Kaido, like York, took off his shirt and began to warm up. Bang! York, who had finished warming up first, stood in front of the warship, assumed a horse stance, and threw a straight punch at the dented bow of the warship. Kaido, who was warming up, looked up at York. Is your training method really useful? Of course. York answered Kaido while punching the warship. You know Garp, right? He practices his punches this way. Without using haki. Without using devil fruit abilities. Purely relying on the most basic physical strength. Garp. Kaido was a little surprised. How would York know Garp's training method? But he was too lazy to delve deeper. After warming up, he also began to punch the warship like a sandbag, standing in front of the warship just like York. By the way, Kaido, have you thought about the future? Future. I want to get a powerful devil fruit like Nougates. And after getting the fruit, will you continue to stay in the Rock's pirate crew? Haven't you thought about leaving here? Kaido also answered York while punching. I haven't thought about that. I think this life is pretty good right now. The Rock's pirate crew will disband, within 5 years. 5 years. Kaido was a little disbelieving. Although the Rock's pirate crew routinely had internal conflicts and fights, and tripped each other up during missions, in Kaido's opinion, this was more like playful banter between comrades, not truly trying to kill anyone. So Kaido still felt some sense of belonging to the Rock's pirate crew. Plus, Rocks wanted to take on the celestial dragons, which aligned with Kaido's inner desires. I've heard your story, Kaido. From a young age, due to your extraordinary talent, you became the kingdom's strongest warrior at just 10 years old, and then repeatedly achieved great feats for the kingdom. But in your 13th year, you were betrayed by the kingdom. The king wanted to sell you to the world government to gain the right to join the World Council. After that, you destroyed the prison ship that was capturing you, escaped, and became a pirate. York paused briefly. Don't you have any hatred for those high and mighty nobles who don't treat people as humans? Kaido remained silent. Hate. Of course he hated them. He now wished he could immediately return to the Vodka Kingdom and smash the king's head into watermelon juice. Then he would kill his way up to Mary Geoise and smash all those so-called celestial dragons to death with his spiked club. But he couldn't do it now, and Rocks couldn't possibly help him destroy the Vodka Kingdom. The reason Kaido hadn't thought about what would happen after the Rock's pirate crew disbanded was also because he didn't want this crew to disband from the bottom of his heart. As the only pirate crew that openly declared its intention to take on the celestial dragons, if Kaido didn't join here, where else could he go? Rocks will ultimately fail. Huh. York's conclusion startled Kaido. The Rock's pirates might seem harmonious in your eyes, but in my opinion, this crew will betray Rocks sooner or later. Perhaps the ones who betray him won't be you, or me, or Newgate, or Linlin, but John, Wang Ji, and others. They might not be so loyal. Up until now, the entire crew has maintained its unity solely through Rock's absolute power and a continuous string of victories. One day, when Rocks is entangled by an enemy's schemes, and the others also face opponents they cannot defeat without fighting to the death, what do you think John and those others will do? Will they flee the battlefield directly, or will they stay and fight alongside Rocks? In fact, if they just fled the battlefield, that would be considered them having a conscience. They've backstabbed other companions before, they're not above it. Even if such backstabbing is just minor squabbles like before, in a critical battlefield, I'm sure you know what kind of consequences such minor squabbles can lead to. Kaido fell silent, only his fist striking the warship grew more forceful. York also temporarily stopped speaking, fully immersing himself in the training of punching the warship. After a long while, Kaido seemed to have finally processed what York said. He spoke. You've said all this because you want to recruit me, right? That's right. York admitted frankly. My goal is actually the same as Rock's, to overturn this world and take down the celestial dragons. However, what's different between him and me is that I believe more in the power of unity. When everyone is united, even if individual strength is slightly weaker than the current Rock's pirates, it can definitely unleash a more powerful force than the current Rock's pirates. So, do you want to team up with me, Kaido? Kaido was silent for a moment, then replied coldly, I will not betray Rocks. Of course. I don't need you to betray him. Including myself, I won't betray him either. I will stay with him until the very end, and witness his downfall. Then, I will inherit his will and form a brand new, united crew. York's tone was full of conviction, and he truly believed it. My goal isn't just to take down the celestial dragons. I want to overthrow all the old nobles. And establish a new, fairer order. Bang! Kaido's punching motion paused. He turned to look at York. He watched for a long time, his mind seemingly deep in thought. Finally, he resumed his warship punching practice. He didn't respond to York at all, neither denying nor affirming. York didn't pay much attention to his reaction. Things need to be shown, not just spoken through slogans. Moreover, there are still nearly 4 years until the God Valley incident, and he has plenty of time to prove his will to Kaido. The sun set, and the evening glow painted the sky red. York and Kaido, having trained all day, stopped their work and went together to the kitchen inside Skull Mountain for a hearty meal. There, they only saw Charlotte Linlin enjoying sweets and Stussy sitting opposite her. They didn't see any male members. Upon asking, they learned that besides Whitebeard, who had already finished eating and left, the other guys were still lingering at Shaggy's rip-off bar and weren't expected back until who knew when tonight. York couldn't be bothered with those decadent guys. In his opinion, the entire Rocks Pirates, except for Charlotte Linlin, Whitebeard, and Kaido, had some strategic value. Everyone else was just rotten fish and shrimp. Yes, that's right, Golden Lion Shiki was also useless in his eyes. A pure pirate, strong in individual power, but his ceiling of achievement was just that. Especially his extreme obsession with Roger in the later stages, it made one wonder if the old man, due to unrequited love for Shaki, eventually changed his romantical orientation and developed a fondness for men. After dinner, York returned to his room as usual, where Gloriosa had been waiting for a long time. So, the two went into the bathroom together to clean themselves. What happened during that time needs no further explanation. An hour later, Gloriosa opened the bathroom door and was the first to escape, raising her hand to stop York, who was chasing her out of the bathroom. Wait a moment. I have a surprise. York paused his chase, wiping the water from his body with a towel while waiting for the surprise Gloriosa had prepared. Turn around first. Gloriosa shyly reached out and grabbed York, making him turn his back to her. After a sound of wiping, Gloriosa seemed to open a drawer. Once the drawer closed, her voice finally rang out. All right, turn around now. York turned, and his already expectant eyes were instantly filled with surprise. He saw Gloriosa wearing an apron of the same style as Shaki's from earlier in the day, but with no dress underneath. York, Gloriosa said with a blush, her voice a little sour, between me and Shaki, who looks better in an apron. Of course, you do. York's tone was firm, and he used beast-like body language to tell Gloriosa that he wasn't lying. The peaceful days passed one by one. Rocks led the Rocks Pirates in constant plundering, accumulating funds, and also searching for a way to revive the frozen giants. Unfortunately, no devil fruit capable of reviving the frozen giants could be found despite extensive searching. At the same time, the news of Shaki resigning as Pirate Empress and moving to Hashinosu Island to open a bar gradually spread with the constant influx and outflow of pirates on Hashinosu Island. The local pirates on Hashinosu Island certainly didn't want this matter to be known, but things rarely go as planned, and not all pirates wished Shaki well. There were always some who, with the dark mentality of, if I can't have it, no one else can, tried to stir up trouble. And some female pirates detested Shaki even more deeply. Just like that, 2 years passed in a flash. The time came to 38 years before Luffy set sail, which is the year 1482 of the sea calendar. There were still 2 years until the God Valley incident and the collapse of the Rocks Pirates. New World, an unknown sea area. The pirate ship, Oro Jackson, was sailing there. Captain Roger. I heard Shaki opened a shop on Hashinosu Island. And it has super high ratings. I remember when Shaki resigned as Empress, she seemed to be seriously ill, in a very bad state. Now that we know where she is, let's go see her. Captain Roger. However, Gall D. Roger, the captain, upon hearing this news, merely leaned against the ship's railing with both hands, looking sulky. Thanks for watching.